To the young aristocrat, Roel Ascart was introduced to a new sister, Alice, a quiet one, a girl with a look like she was brought here by mistake destinies. Young Mister stared at her as if I tried to understand why fate had thrown me this to him, this acute but suspicious miracle. In the past, he was in life ordinary guy. By ridiculous, the accident did not send him to another world with a very strange conditions accommodation. He woke up. He realized that now lives in a game that I passed it once, but without desire, step on the same plot lines rake. Now he wore name Roel Ascart, known in the gaming world as spoiled young man and chief villain plot, of which hated almost all characters. According to the plot, in 10 years, he should was kill his own sister, and he already felt the cold on himself breath scenario. Angry at the one who sent him here, he firmly decided to find a way out and rewrite this one disadvantageous for him history. Studying a familiar plot, he decided, get to the bottom of why once rich family has slipped into complete ruin. But at 9 years old, he has no opportunities, was less than a snail in a race, and the prospect looked, it's really sad. Suddenly, before my eyes surfaced window, joyfully announcing the launch of a certain new systems, complete secrets and possibilities. Looking at his characteristics and pitiful rank, he decided, try out magic. Though he has no spells, was less than socks in the chest of drawers. First, it was called microwave, and, to his disappointment, it worked. Like a hairdryer, only dry your hair, not your enemies incinerate. Then he became indignant. Prices in the system store, trying to understand what they sell, is there magic there or a piece of gold brick? Seeing his pitiful position, the system decided took pity and gave it away, starting item, like through lottery ticket for a newbie. The gadget allowed one to earn money reputation, which sounded tempting because he has no friends was the same as a cactus. Having found the maid, he decided test the miracle object, check if it is possible Lee farm reputation is as easy as drinking tea. Jumping up to her, he theatrically fell into her arms and began to repentantly ask for forgiveness for yesterday. Pranks, as if saint under consequence. She thought in surprise that, sir, perhaps he really has become a good boy. Although there is a smell of a catch was in the air. The maid Anna forgave him, hoping that change is real, not temporary, like a cat pretending cute. Above her, the reputation scale blinked at his head, and for a simple, he snatched an apology so many points that wanted dance right here. He's fast realized that reputation easier to farm than gold, and shops almost the same as twins in cheap suits. Reputation was save up only with reasonable creatures and exchange them for points, and then spend them on all sorts of things useful gadgets. Roel decided dial points, and in front of Alice, introducing himself decently and hinting that ready help in case any problems. But Alice is up for everything, answered just a dry, yes, sir. And that's it, irritated him like pebble in perfect polished boot. When the maid brought the cutlery, Alice suddenly the fork slipped out, and she almost jumped in fright. Roel remembered that girl Panicky is afraid sharp items, and she also has, there is rare silver kinship. And in the theocracy of the Holy Mestizo, it is considered one of the most rare. After first awakening, she got the ability super regeneration. And because of what she has, any wound would heal instantly. It would become an object bullying with other noble parties, children. Now, after all these horrors, she has appeared real Phobos. She is afraid any sharp objects, even a knife in the hands of the waiter, calls nervous tick. And here it is, Roel. Without losing chance, I decided to boost my reputation, move towards Alice, and deftly cut her a steak. Knows where can earn points, and is not shy. And, to add to the effect, he began to feed her with a fork. Yes, like in a TV series about romance, only with a note steak and thick points reputation. Oops, 1,000! Points straight into the pocket. Alice burst into tears. From admiration, of course. Here, this is a turn. Roel understood. He had found his gold mine. He immediately ordered the servants to bring all the sweets and goodies that were in the kitchen. Reputation soared to hundreds and even 200 points at a time. And so that the party isn't over, Roel sentenced Alice. Eat this, and that too. Anna, watching everything this circus, I assumed that the guy just fell in love with Alice. Well, did you doubt it? After diligent with a lot of work and digging, Roel was able to do it exchange in the store. And even I managed to find something unusual. This was army skeletons, thunderers, which he successfully bought. Well, who hasn't dreamed of skeletons on their side? On that very one place, Roel decided to put on a mini-show by checking bony guys in business, as if there was a test drive of the living skeletons. And lo and behold, skeletons and a coffin really did appear before him. True, for 2,500 points was total 8 skeletons. But who did you count? To check their combat readiness, he ordered them attack wooden cross. How would be to understand what are standing these guys? Skeletons, they lifted the coffin, and under the music moved towards the goal. There was no epic, rather, some strange dance rehearsal. The guy couldn't figure out what he had bought at all, and why it looks more like a party zombies than the army. Already lying down under the tree, Roel thought about the phrase, "Born to die, they bring joy alive." And the skeletons all continued mind dance to the same song as now it's spinning in the guy's head. Like a dance of the dead some. Coming to his father, Roel stated that he had appeared interest in agriculture the household and asked to work tax inspector. And here it is why. To understand how are working taxes in their world. Yes, it's strange. But the guy wanted to study tax system. Father at first thought that son, again, will ask money, and was already going to send him to the butler. But having heard this I'm stunned. The child who was able only eat, drink, and be merry, suddenly I wanted to study. And my father, although surprised, gave the go-ahead. Let son, now he will feel it himself. Hard are mind money. And what a beauty eyes bred in there, the family definitely doesn't get it. Sitting on my father's mill, the guy cunningly collected 20% of grain from residents, returning it back, as if tax boomerang. All this comedy was just for the sake of building up reputation. After all, boy was able to build career more cunning than any beetle. Skeletons, the boy decided that hide it in the vault and tell his father that this family a relic. He still won't know what's stored there. These skeletons, very comfortable was exploit. How slaves, they don't need had to pay for them work, and no need to feed. Back home, Roelu reported that arrived honorable guest, and the boy put it on right away, mine new suit, and was getting ready stuff reputation. At the entrance were noticed Frostwing's horses. This is a beast of noble origin. There had human only with angelic kinship appeared before them. Human from royal families, formidable Cain Zeklade, and his name sounded like drumbeat. Minute time, and the guy is already sucking up to it. To a man, they say I heard from my father about his brave deeds, and what an honor it is now Roelu to meet him. Cain just laughed and turned to his father. That is, to Carter. He didn't think, what a guy like him will talk about the king such good things. Carter chuckled, but the thought that something was definitely strange with Roel began to slowly grow in his head. Alice was the daughter Larty, whom Cain himself raised him, and how only my father passed away. I have to raise him. The girl was left with the family Askertov. The next character who summoned to Roel some I don't trust, there was Nora Zeklade. She was also the daughter Cain Zeklada. Sitting in the living room, Roel continued do your own business, namely raise reputation, and first spoke to Nora, first theme conversation, there was tea, and they talked. How suddenly she asked what he thought of her in general. And the guy's tongue went into action. Gorgeous, beautiful, intelligent, and in general, the most awesome. Nora stopped the guy and took out a small red pendant, assuring him that this pebble works how pocket lie detector. Well, yes. What did he expect in this stories? There were no easy ways out, and no skip level button. Nora was one from 4 heroines games, it seemed. Was she at all ideal? But it seemed so, at first sight. Inside. This was a sadist in the future, too. Her will start call, bloodthirsty angel. That's how it looks. It happens deceptive. The boy was about to start making excuses, how she quickly began to climb towards him, and was already was on it. Roel not only that I was so confused that I almost started screaming for help, that Nora asked if maybe lie be so that he knows her true nature. The boy he moved away and said that he knew everything about her. Also was what's strange is that she speaks of some kind of truth, nature, and without having even 15 years. The guy immediately opened it cards and asked to leave his young soul alone for now. She not quite yet shabby. More. The strange thing is that she started talking about what she liked, see scared persons, who they pray she asked for mercy, and said that sometimes wants even step on them. Collars, chains, whips. Coming soon, her arsenal promised be filled with tricks, that were shaking even seasoned sadists. Stepping on his foot with her heel for the words he said, that in her sadistic, there is nothing in hobbies especially. Then she announced that Roel now her property, and it sounded like this, like a brand on a hot one metal. But at the critical moment intervened, Alice ruined the whole performance, saving her brother's soul from shame. The girls started asking about what they talked, but Nora said it was about hobbies. He jumped out onto the balcony. Father Nori is shocked by what these nimble guys, by some miracle, they forced the princess, usually cold, so sincere and cheerful to chat. Sitting at Roel's table, beamed with joy, Princess left. He decided that now we'll simply milk the reputation system and live happily ever after, without any unnecessary drama. But, looking at Alice, the guy froze in horror. He was carefully accumulated reputation in an instant flew into the minus, as if someone pressed the reset button. But, looking at his father, he noticed that he had a reputation scale vice versa climbed up. Dad, pleased like an elephant, what son became friends with the most princess? Alice was tormented by doubts. What if her brother is older like your friend Nora? But not her. In her, I already had some images in my head, the most dramatic scenarios. All it's simple. Nora is more beautiful and doesn't require constant worries. Unlike her, small and noisy Alice, who by what, total only child. Roel asked, don't gnaw it myself. Thoughts about fears that are not destined to come true, and promised that always will be there, at least with the world around turned over. How whatever was, meeting Roela and Nora went not at all according to the original canon games, and maybe this even became a big plus. The problem was that the guy's characteristics were ridiculously low, and not a single way there was no way to lift it. Except, perhaps, help systems. The system read his thoughts and issued reminder. Physical preparation is at 0, so when receiving boosters or waiting for him, funny but extremely unpleasant side effects. Exit there was one. To start with improving the basic body. And for this, we'll do potion with minimal debuffs, so you don't faint right during training. But even for this, he did not have enough coins, and he was in despair. Thought about a discount for small children. The system immediately, with a business-like look, issued a generous 50%. However, looking at all these serums, Guy everything equals grumbled. The things are, of course, luxurious. But the price tag looked like there did from Tears unicorns. Even the son of an aristocrat. It seems Roela would save up for this almost a year. And that's on the condition that he don't spend anything on sweets. But after all, also, Nora's birthday is coming soon, and her father managed to entrust he should prepare a gift for her, preferably not from the nearest garbage container. Remembering recent talking to her, he grinned. She seemed to like it even most, an ordinary dog leash, if you present it with pathos. Having decided at least somehow break free from this pathetic financial bottom, Roel went to the Trading Association Sophia in search easy earnings. The system suggested he has one interesting item, number 172, with a calming effect capable of suppressing erosion spells. Pointing his finger at the box containing the find, he asked the gentleman Arvina what price that ready to pay, throwing in an innocent sight seller dreams. Arwen apparently decided to shine generosity, and offered the amount is several times higher real than involuntarily did Roel has a little holiday. Deal was not just successful, the results were even better than he expected, and the mood soared to the skies. Without losing time, the guy immediately acquired 2 cherished serums to how follows pump up body and squeeze from his maximum. After making sure that the system is not trying to sell him, he took on the fake, with enthusiasm mixed these potions like real alchemist on the edge of science discoveries. And then his stomach twisted so much that the guy bent in half, fell to the floor, and mouth gushed scarlet blood. As if he just, lost the battle with the body. His body was so pathetically weak, both in magic and in physical education, that he simply passed out, like Broken Lantern in the basement. And the final one, the recipient of the miracle candle, turned out to be some kind of cloudy guys from cities with romantic called Rose. It was worth one of them to light up candle, as the anxiety in my chest subsided, and the effect undead slowly crawled away, as if someone turned it off dark spell. It turned out that Bruce's life literally depended on this lamp. She was his little and stubborn life preserver. Meanwhile, Roela began to feel hot and cold, and it was because of this, that discomfort, he began to gradually come to his senses. Having opened eyes, he felt that, as if on a leash. But on the contrary, Nora sat, and with a serious look insisted that he himself gave it myself to her for her birthday. She sharp jumped off with her throne, ran up to him close, and was already preparing to reward the guy with a kiss. Roel screamed as if I saw a live spider on the ceiling the size of a cow. And then he woke up, in his own room, safe and sound. Everything turned out to be just a strange and too vivid dream. Everything is next to him. This Alice slept quietly for a while, as if nothing happened. He was both scared and surprised. At the same time, realizing that all this was nearby for a while. Before he had time to really come to his senses, he was in the room, flew in father, joyfully yelled that son woke up and started demanding a report on where he was hurts. Having tried at content flasks which drank son, father felt traces, spells, and decided what by all means find someone who tried to poison him. But Roel only waved with his hand. Like, it's not worth it, worry. Just in the closet found a set of strengthening serums and decided their test. For this confession, Sonny received from father a light but educational slap on the back of the head. Love. And yet, even only after he recovered, he felt that his body had already begun happen some strange but nice changes. Fast after getting ready and changing, he headed to the training field to check what the result is. It came out from his alchemical experiments. If his starting level, if he gets to 6 Como, then he will be able to rise in rank to E. Feelings were absolutely new ones. Flaw skills disappeared, and although access to abilities demanded original level 5 Como, serum worked damn fine. Until my birthday, Nora had time left. He decided to spend the money exclusively for your own pumping. Days flew by, and here it is. They were already standing in the banquet hall, decorated for the birthday celebration. Burrows. Roel. I watched how many people had gathered, and even involuntarily felt sorry, birthday girl, though understood that she has been since childhood. I'm used to this kind of thing in the bustle. Suddenly, Nora appeared, kicked him, and he fell to the floor, attracted all eyes to them. Alice jumped out immediately forward, stood between him and Nora, and began loudly congratulate Princess, like blocking her access to her brother. Everyone was surprised when Alice calmly but firmly asked the princess, stop, make fun of her brother. And their parents, it seems, had absolutely everything equally. They quietly sipped from glasses and had a nice conversation, as if nothing happens. Bye, Alice, scolded Nora. The last one, I suddenly thought that the girl is just jealous her to the older brother. When my brother suggested go get a bite to eat, Alice refused and decided take a walk and get some fresh air. As she wandered down the corridor, she thought that there was nothing special for her here. After all, home mission to establish connections, all equals, lies on Roel. And then, as if from air, in front of her there appeared 3 boys. One stepped forward and said how much he missed him, although she didn't even remember him. Meanwhile, Roel noticed that sisters long time know, and also what there is not a single child in sight among the guests from families Elrics, who have long been sharpened their teeth on them. And at that moment in his head clicked. Connection between events was obvious. The boy's name was Braun, and he started to pester me brazenly. Alice, surprised that she at all joined the family Askartov. He still sarcastically asked if he knows Lee, her brother, what she is a monster, and how fast are healing her wounds, and how she at the same time writhing in pain. And then, knowing full well about her fear of sharp items, Braun brought the fork right to her eye, clearly intending to pierce it. But the next second he gets hit on the head, arrived heavy chair, and the guy is impressive collapsed to the floor. Roel managed just in time, not letting Alice suffer. But Braun jumped up and was already getting ready to apply some skill. Roel activated Glove's mana, and between them began real fight. All the training was not in vain. One punch to the stomach, and the bully again lying on the ground. Braun's friends, seeing that their leader lies, they disappeared together from the place events. Now Roel, armed wooden with a stick, he began to knock Braun on the head for all the bullying of Alice when she was at all baby. Braun was furious at such a disgrace and promised that it won't end that easily. The brother and sister didn't have time, go far as he snatched, took a knife out of his pocket, and rushed after them. They, of course, didn't hear steps, and therefore Roel received direct abdominal wound. Feud between their families stretched more with Time's War's twins, when, according to Braun, the Askarts helped some ugly woman ascend to the throne, and now he saw a chance to finally take revenge. Alice, in a panic looking around, she found a fork. It's terribly scary, but I decided. and with all forces drove in her in Bron's hand. So knife fell out and clattered on the floor. In response, Bron weighed out Alice's slap, and she, knocking down breath, fell to the floor. Then the time came Bron received slaps. Alice was already unconscious, but now came running. Many people are friends. Armor. Roel understood that may not be able to withstand it, but he still took a wooden stick in his hands and prepared for battle. However, where did no look, Princess Nora has appeared. She said she liked it watch a guy writhe in pain, but don't like it when he suffers her in front of another person. How would weird this? No matter how it sounded, he was still glad to see her appearance. The guys who came protect Bron. We weren't going to retreat and asked the princess not to interfere. Nora activated some force and, in the name of the House of Zeklade, ordered them immediately leave. There was nothing left for them except how submit and leave. She materialized disordered and distorted mana into a concrete form. As a practitioner, she is more likely in total, had 5th original level. Difference in power between by everyone level is great. Guys were on the 6th, and even attacking together did not have chances. But then they came parents, and everyone had to explain oneself. Defenders Brana started, all blame it on Roel, claiming that it has nothing to do with it. Father Brona. He walked up to his son, grabbed him by the throat, and began to choke him. He then apologized on behalf of House Elric, making his son pay the price for his outrageous act. Bron, I was lying there foaming at the mouth, and it's unclear whether he will survive. Is he? To Roel's room came in, his father praised him for his courage, but asked will not be henceforth so reckless. He passed on his son a book of war records, saying that this is important to know. Once upon a time, Prince Wade raised insurrection against his sister's Victoria, to prevent her from revealing his connection to the cult. Thus began War Twins. 3 houses supported Wade, and only House Askertoff sided with Victoria. However, forces their ancestors found themselves at a disadvantaged positions. Victoria and the ancestors seriously wounded, and sent reinforcements failed break into the city. In desperation, Ponte's ancestor used family relic, turning the surrounding area at present Labyrinth to hide Victoria. They waited until news of the uprising will reach His Holiness, who returned with an army and defeated Army Wade. So Ponte saved the Princess Victoria, and now family Askartov became the heart of that very labyrinth. Relic was stone that due to overloads magic crumbled into powder. To this day, we arrived only its fragments. Smiling, Carter said his grandfather refused several times Princess Victoria because was married. That's why refusal of offer princesses for them families are nothing new. Roel ran away somewhere. Alice told her father that wants a brother, then shocked him a little. But then she added that wants protect Roella, after all, that suffered because of the Elric's house. And at that evening I couldn't do anything do. Father started it reassure and praise for what she managed to pick up a fork. But Alice, she still asked to teach her magic. Father agreed and promised that she will become strong. In this time, Roel was already sitting in the office. Arvina, to learn about the Elric house. Arwen was surprised, but reported that this family unusual. Although they are a merchant organization and care relate to information that is reliable, there is no data about them. After wars, twins their exiled guard border. Place dangerous. Intended for them weakening. But that's all it came out otherwise. In Exile House, Elrics got stronger, entered the top 5 the strongest, and even became stronger than the House of Ascart. This meant that they possessed huge wealth, but the source these funds remained unknown. The Count increased the number of practitioners and kept a low profile. Having conveyed all the information, Arwen warned that House Elrics may be very dangerous. Roel's houses. A surprise awaited him. Nora dropped in to see him. I was a little worried about him, but he seemed to be okay. A little after chatting for a while, Nora said that I came to give him a gift. Inside turned out to be the Blade of 12 Kryliev, his own genus, holy relic. He couldn't directly to own, she wasn't their saints, and he was not suitable in age and qualifications. Therefore the blade is temporary was passed on to the House of Ascart. Nora cut her and his finger, dripped a drop of blood onto the blade. It happened strange. The blade increased in size, and Roel grabbed his head and fell to the ground. Princess Nora arranged mysterious rite of passage of the blade, as if preparing for filming epic fantasy. It turned out that for 12 angelic wings needed special pedigree, and, mixing blood, Blade without a doubt chose his own, the owner exactly, Roella. From their blood was also forged unique ability that nobody another couldn't repeat it. It was something to be proud of and brag about. Nora also got hers out weapon for praise, a dagger given to her by Roel. There is beauty in it. There was more than enough, but practicality, zero. Roel, as a joke, decided that happened real exchange daggers. But Nora suddenly became embarrassed, obviously knowing something about it. Custom. The guy was, I'm sure that the meaning here is literal, but precisely for this confidence, and received a slap on the head from the princess. She hinted that if his family will be delayed in the capital, it is worth mentally preparing. Its grandfather personally wants to meet him. While Anna was rushing around the room, he decided to clarify with her that it all means this mysterious exchange daggers. It turned out that it was antique tradition, knightly childbirth. A man gives dagger. How recognition, and a woman responds in kind if accepts his feelings. On New Year's Eve, he was mindful of the upcoming meeting Grandfather Burrows, and now headed to the church, where a high-ranking official was waiting for him face. Long excitement disappeared the moment the old man reached out to him, candy, like checking, should he rejoice simple things. Touching the dagger, the old man felt the rarest compatibility, and the blade itself is unexpected, awakened two unique capabilities. He even joyfully clapped his hands. Fate had clearly thrown him a curveball, them interesting party. Having calmed down, he noticed something rare in the guy for his age. Feeling justice, remembering events at the bottom birth burrows, the old man expressed hope that the Ascart family will be able to get his back greatness, and Roel will become the one who this will do. His name was John Heathcliff, the ruler of the theocracy, the head of the Church of the Goddess, the first apostle and the bearer of another dozen impressive ones' titles. Snow slowly lay on the shoulders, creating the impression as if they were dressed in silver mantles. For now, they stood before the crowd as guests of honor. Returning to his warm bed, he almost melted with pleasure, thinking over a bunch of new information that we managed to find out. Instead of habitual, Anna's new maid appeared and reported that now he is the only one the master of the house. The system thanked him royally. 40% discount on the entire range events. A real holiday greedy people. Without thinking, he bought the skill Disaster Bloodshed, which highlighted names those who wished to him death. He woke up from something unexpected pressure. Nora Cozy. She settled down on it as if she had been sleeping like that for a couple of hours already. He was struck by that no one warned about her upon arrival, and all because the servants were replaced by royal ones. Princess decided meet New Year in his company, and brought with her kiss armful sweets, and, how always, arranged a fun candy attack, forcing him to catch them on the fly. In his eyes, he finally turned into a homemade candy trap, a cute toy for endless experiments. Nora did not calm down and demanded excursion to the legendary labyrinth, where once upon a time, Queen Victoria herself lived there. An aura of antiquity, pathos, and cobwebs as a gift. She warned that if Roel will decide lie down, then no guarantees calm. Her plans were clearly chaos while he slept. In 5 minutes later, the guy was already showing her the old one, the chair on which the queen sat, as if this was relic universal values. Then he showed a shelf with diaries. Great. Grandfather of Ponte, a legendary adventurer who was rumored to have recorded everything to history, has not been erased. Opening one of diaries, Roel discovered that great-grandfather wrote exclusively about Queen Victoria, from the color her dresses to the extent she was scattered. Having lost patience, he slammed diary on the table with indignation. How at all was so many pages to dedicate to such frank nonsense? But at that moment, Nora froze, feeling something is wrong, and clarified, took is he with him protective amulet. The amulet was not just a trinket. It could reflect several attacks of the master the highest level, and was created the legendary magician of Bologna named Seely. Roel showed that he had the amulet with him, and carefully put it back in place, as if that was fragile jewel. Nora caught a strange and prickly look on her, as if invisible the ice beam burned through her through and through. Though she has no confidence in this, still there was none. Roel admitted that Same feels something was wrong in the house, suspiciously quiet, and the servants seemed to evaporated. Without thinking, he grabbed Nora's hand, and they rushed to the central labyrinth, the safest one place in the district. Behind air split like the fabric of reality tore apart with claws, and from break stepped a man in a cap, with a sarcastic smile smirking as he stated that they're found. In this time in Brian's house sat uninvited the visitor, and his presence more reminded threat than friendly arrival. Brian said that the family increased surveillance of him, but before the holiday, they relaxed their grip, which he took advantage of by escaping. Its useless heir was ready with friends, but the prophecy for some reason did not come true, and their plan failed crack. Haired Man coldly noted that while Katya is unconscious, Roel will stay problem, alive or not, on theirs side. Old Brian again suggested act decisively, and this time completely eliminate the guy before it gets too much late. But the interlocutor reminded that prophecy, not only they have it, but somewhere else there is forces that same are afraid of the future, and ready intervene. He raised his hand in an offer. Look at just what the acquired painting, which clearly had its own dark side story. A small one appeared in front of him. Window, curtained dense curtain, which immediately sharply swung open as if on someone's command. Inside were visible princess, and Roel looked they are like were running away from someone, and the situation clearly promised large troubles. The guy who hunted them was called an artist on human skin, and thanks capabilities Roella is his name, was glowing in red letters. This meant only one thing. There was no doubt about his plans. He was going to break off them life. The system immediately reported that the enemy is 4th rank, and the gap in strength was huge, so better was urgently save your skin. Quicker in total, he was from Mithril Priory, those who I once wanted to work with a team blue-haired, but received categorical refusal. He didn't even hide that he didn't like them, especially after sharp changes that happened at Askarts and Zeklades simultaneously. And in the capital it is no longer possible was do everything that if it comes to mind, but the Holy See is not at all from those who can be easily fooled fingers. Blue-haired agreed with this, realizing that they could be the power and connection with His Excellency, but the Radiance, these are all equals, belonged Brian's family. At that moment, a man appeared before His Excellency. The man with the letter is a member of the Mithril Priory and Deputy Chapters, Lacrasse. He arrived to demonstrate sincere intentions and persuade John to stay away from them plans. According to him, the Priory did not want harm Askertum and Zekladum. Them need to was only the child of prophecy. The guy in the hat, he just started introducing himself, but the children didn't even listen, but jumped up and ran away. He didn't intend to their let go, cut finger, stained the brush with blood, and activated ability, personal workshop. Instantly around arose gloomy a room with black walls dotted with paintings of the most strange plots. This was his innate ability that cuts off the victim from the outside world, where there the talismans were becoming useless, and he suggested them listen to him. Nora tried to convince Roella that he is not an enemy, but the guy already understood. History again didn't go according to the game plan scenario. The man stated that get out can only in one case, if one of them will die, and provided it's up to them to decide who. Nora suddenly fell silent and Strange smirked, causing Roel to think that she is going to betray him. Not long thinking, the blue-haired man finally decides that today someone's heart will definitely stop fight, and it's better if this will be both. At that moment, it was as if revived nightmares from the pictures began get out strange, frightening, crooked creatures, target which could be guessed without words. His Eminence is unhurried, read a piece of paper on which in neat handwriting with drawn names, 3 representatives' families Askartov. And since the Zeklades have already sworn protect Askartov, tempting offer had to reject, even despite all its attractiveness. And since actions Priory touched the church was hurt alive, and righteousness was insulted Joe's hearts, the ruler ordered drive there away, far and for a long time. From out of nowhere, as if out of thin air, a voice came demanding protect a friend with your own hands, and then bear witness everything in front of others. It seemed to Roel that this voice belongs to the Holy Throne, and then the head was pierced sharp, almost unbearable pain. Before my eyes spilled dazzling flow light, erasing all outlines and leaving only white, boundless nothing. The guy woke up. He saw that someone gently shakes him by the shoulder, and something quietly says, pulling out from failure consciousness. The place where he came to his senses was strewn with bodies in which were sticking out arrows like gloomy tags death. In one gaped from the walls huge hole, or rather, the hole itself, the wall, no longer existed, and in the distance rose thick pillar smoke. Next, he then called the system and checked the characteristics. Now the titles proudly proclaimed that he was the protector of the ladies and the fist of the emperor. A notification about the start immediately appeared on the screen. Awakening kinship ancestors. The system warned that this extremely dangerous and suggested cancel process. At the same time, she promised immediately help. His chances of success alone were 40%, and with her, they were already 50%. True, the use systems in this business, it cost 500,000, and the guy, of course, didn't have anywhere near that kind of money. Then the system suggested, take out a loan. If Roel doesn't pay it off in 5 years, she will turn off forever. After a brief hesitation, he finally pressed the accept button, and at that very moment, long-awaited help activated. The system has turned on auto-regulation, painful sensations, but progress awakening froze at 18%. Bye, Roel. I was fiddling with the settings. Nora was unsuccessful, tried find out in which exactly point of the world they found themselves in. The guy advised not to waste time on empty guesses, and although would attentively inspect bodies fallen soldiers. On one from dead, they noticed a cloak embroidered with the coat of arms of the ancient House Elric. Princess, I immediately recognized the style and noticed that the form was clearly related specifically to the Victorian era. Having added up all the found evidence, they guessed that our in-time March uprisings wars Gemini. Suddenly, from fog began to swirl in the air. Rather, all in all, this was one of effect's labyrinth. From thick swaddling clothes broke out soldiers, and their commander with a hoarse cry ordered to seize the fugitives immediately. Nora was already getting ready run, but Roel suddenly called out some Uncle Peter and waved to him hand, forcing the soldiers to turn around. This turned out to be that most blue-haired in a cape, to whom the guy involuntarily added hassle, after all. Now the knights turned to him. Soldiers gushed attack, trying to grab him, but he repelled the blows or light, and even mocking game. True, he himself did everything Moore dreamed finish off these two children, but the thick fog interfered him to complete what he had planned. Taking advantage of the moment while Sorcerer held back, Roel grabbed Nora by the hand, and they rushed away, dissolving into the labyrinth. Princess, I wondered in surprise how he knew that guy's name, and Roel just wrote it down. This magic. Move through the labyrinth without obstacles, maybe only the one who owns his treasure. And it is probably with the Queen Victoria or at Ponte. He abruptly turned to Nora, touched her forehead. From the heat of the fingers, she flared up, blushed, and froze. Without thinking, he picked it up her on his back and continued on his way. And Nora, still stronger, turned red, and the temperature seemed to be rising as well. Meanwhile, Ponte in his estate considered round device and puzzled. Is it really a kinship detector came out from building? Looking at Queen Victoria, he revealed Mind Grimoire and began to write something about her. Like always, his thoughts were far from decency. She looked at him with a squint and asked if the teacher was obsessed with her again. Body. Real pervert. Ponte only shrugged and noted that this is the price of power, and she is great about it, informed. That's coquettish smiled and said that knows, and admitted that she just likes to tease him. After why, he handed her a kinship detector. She confidently stated that the device could not go out from building. And then arose question. Why did he record it, Blood Zaklydov, on that street? But the Holy See certainly couldn't be there, means this red dot, most likely in total, it pointed to an illegitimate child. Always been rumors among the people about the shamelessness of the Holy See. But this child, I am not guilty of anything, and therefore Victoria intended to save him. But with such a trick, she exposes myself big dangers with sides Wade, but also Wade. There is such device, so he too could notice this. At Nora's face, it was burning. Breathing became heavy, and the blood ran through the veins very fast. This is a clear sign that her pedigree is going to a new one level. The boy sat, staring thoughtfully at the ceiling, trying to figure out why around him alone monsters? With this strange in his mind, he began to nod off. On the system screen surfaced dry notice. Something about witnesses and assessments. No hint of details, just a slight chill down the spine. The system recommended to engage the spirit of the House of Ascart is strange advice, but promised help in awakening his lineage. It was worth it close eyes as it unfolded before him a terrible picture. Whole fields of skulls and piled skeletons. It looks like there was a dream, or something very similar. From darkness emerged a huge skeleton, and from his look, it was clear he wasn't happy to have a guest. Wavebone by hand made it clear that he did not come to remain silent. Cold voice as if pierced air, asking the question of how dead transmit their power. Thoughts Roella got lost. He didn't expect it here similar. The skeleton was in no hurry, as if gave time to think about it answer. In his stillness, it was read, patience and threat. When it became clear that answer until there are bones creaked, and the giant returned Rowella back, leaving only reminder that duty, this will have to give away. He woke up with a jerk, got out of bed. Cold, sweat and trembling fingers. Too much obvious, so that this there was a dream. The system reported, first meeting ended, progress awakening, 80%. And in addition, a unique status. Appeared in the characteristics new item, skill invulnerability. Gift from Bone Giant. However, awakening was stalled. Everything rested on an unassigned answer, and the guy began understand why met difficulties. He returned to Nora. He wanted to make sure that she was feeling better. But there was no improvement. She slowly rose, and something new flashed in his gaze. It seemed that he was no longer considered enemy. She named the date of her baptisms. Personal, almost sacred information that trust only the most to loved ones, in case father will decide settle scores with him. She warned that at dawn to him will have to leave. To direct her awakening will be able to only the ancestor, and she herself will become for him a burden. But he didn't leave. Instead of this, prepared a sleeping pill for her so that she would calmly to sleep. In the original, there was no history of deaths. Nora once said that she had never had to get into hopeless situations. But Alice's fate changed, and behind it, the whole chain events that life ultimately brought Burroughs on the edge of the abyss. Rowell blaming everything herself. And yet, despite no matter what, I was worried about him. Ability promises Grandera couldn't just be given away. Great power is always leads the way. Big danger. And the main one threat now was Peter Carter. The guy went through everything he had collected about him in his head. Information, searching at least the slightest chance of gaining the upper hand. Transcendental abilities came at a high cost in combat. The cultists could not afford to spend long battles. It is known there was another one. Peter could pull out monsters straight out of paintings. So close combat could be his weakness. Place. At this moment, Peter stood in blood up to his elbows. The soldiers, recognizing him, slowed down. And not without reason. Traces. The hound was led straight to Rowell and Nora. The hunt went according to plan. He called the lady with the dog and directed them to the building where were hiding fugitives. But there was something strange. Wide doors, wide open, wide open. Rowell hid, activating skill Shadow Lover, a disguise that erases presence. Dog rushed at him, but the blade passed from his mouth to the tip of his tail, splitting creature in two. Along with the dog, hers also fell hostess. Two monsters disappeared into oblivion. Realizing that case bad, Peter launched colorful drawing. Rainbow lines rushed towards the goal. Rowell reacted lightning fast, activating the ability Elusive and intercepting the artist's blow. Next, in a moment, he was no longer there. Only small hole in the ground. Peter remembered about the blade. Need to find a weapon while they were not used against him. Luckily, Rowell managed to awaken the power of the blade in advance. Otherwise, all it's over would, tragically. Jump within 50 meters, and the price is 10% mana per use. Skill wasn't perfect, but damn useful. Opportunity teleport was provided 3 times a day. And to any point within the limits, visibility and range jump depended on strength. Because of the thick fog Rowell threw at Peter's feet, Fog Flashlight Black Raven increased visibility 10 times. Bye! Peter was distracted by something unusual lantern. Rowell crept up from behind and struck with a blade straight into the stomach. However, Peter only erupted crazy laughing, making it clear that young man in vain hoped it's so easy to kill him. His main trump card was Dive. Part the body had already begun to turn into a picture. And now the murder of the artist became extremely complex task. She flew off the canvas, smiling a woman who resembled a runaway nun from Cathedral. Was his mother. Rowell didn't slow down and activated ability Promise Grandera. It began back countdown. With one swing of his blade, he cut through Peter in 2. The spell ended, and the system assigned young man high assessment. However, usage skill left him completely exhausted. By this time, the time had come dawn, and it is necessary was how can go back soon. Suddenly behind my back rang out the question of where he is going come back. Rowell instantly turned around and tried to hit the standing man behind man, but that one stopped its movement with one finger. Prince Wade appeared in front of him. The prince clarified, "Not this one, Li, young man, only what defeated the fourth opponent level. Judging by the clothes, he probably came from aristocracy." Then sight Wade fell on the guy's holy blade, and that was activated. The prince did not remember cases to this the weapon was handed to such a person. Wade untied civil war, striving stay the only one heir to the house of Zeklade, and to preserve only devotees' supporters. For Nora, who supported Victoria, the very thought of an alliance with Wade was unacceptable. It is necessary was urgently search way, save her. Suddenly, Roel felt sharp pain in the head, and before the eyes started, emerged strange images, where pictures captured small children playing with Queen Marie. Then appeared more at all young Prince Wade, with whom the Queen began a conversation. She reported him that he is destined to become the monarch of the theocracy of the Holy Matis, the messenger of Sai and the angelic child, and also emphasized his difference from other children. Rest children were orphans who had lost parents for various reasons. Then, how future heir was not to play, but to study. The next image showed how small girl a piece of the roof falls, but Queen Marie applies their forces and destroys the fragment. Girl survived, but instead the Queen heard the gratitude only cold, silent subjects. Later rumors began to spread that the Queen's attribute did not belong no one from 3 main schools, and they began to whisper that the monarch would turn out to be from heretics are a great shame. She was locked in a damp dungeon where days were drawn into flour, and the years turned into an endless nightmare. All this time, Wade diligently studied while dreaming, rather take the holy throne and help mothers. But the plans are not destined to happen was come true, because in the icy camera, she faded away as if extinguished torch. Vision, it's over, and Roel realized that saw memories of the prince. It turned out that that was not a cultist, but a heretic, that fully changed the picture. The prince, realizing that the young man is incapable, now fight, left him sitting on the ground. He assigned one of subjects look after Roel, and he himself went to Victoria. Suddenly, disaster has been activated. Bloodshed. Roel, I was racking my brains trying to figure out why this happened exactly now. Thus turned out to be the prince's secret ally, Marquis Brian Elric, the illustrious intriguer. Meanwhile, Wade entered the chambers Victoria, waiting catch Ponte and Victoria together. But instead of this, saw sleeping girl. Looking closer, he realized that this not Victoria at all, though similarity there was between them. The prince immediately ordered to be delivered to him Roela, suspecting that that owns necessary information. He turned it over her. The room was turned upside down, but I found it only empty sheets and strange, dirty notes. A whole one appeared in the distance guard black silhouettes. Brian screamed about the attack. Among them is Roel found out name his own distant ancestor and decided that long-awaited salvation is near. At the helm, combat detachment walked Victoria, flashing her sword and throwing harsh orders attack. However, with horror, Roel realized that no one was going to save him. They just went on their way, expensive. Castle streets, suddenly a darkness of arrows covered each corner, turned into a deadly trap. Meanwhile, Nora was safely taken out. From rooms, for now, soldiers fought at the castle. Victoria assured she was safe and announced that now will break through. Nora introduced herself as distant descendant Victoria from the house of Zeklaidov, and also reported about a boy named Roel Ascart. Victoria straightaway, I asked Ponte again, is there whether in his family a person with that name? That answered negative, but I checked with Nora. I'm sure Li Shi is related. Girl swore on her blood that he was Ascart. Search there was a child during the battle too much risky. Ponte noted that descendants, there are few Ascarts left, and even side the branch is worthy of salvation. He calmed down Victoria, assuring that activates labyrinth before arrival Wade, and planned create fog screen for retreat. But suddenly, the blue one struck lightning, and in the blinding flash in front of everyone, the prince himself appeared. He coldly ordered Brian to return the boy immediately, and his words sounded like a sentence. Meanwhile, Roel, trying to escape, kicked the soldiers and made his way away from the battlefield. One of the soldiers noticed child, and Roel stated that carries important a report to Queen Victoria, emphasizing that she personally instructed to him this one mission. Soldiers instantly changed course of action and received orders to send secret message to the palace. However, all went awry when their surrounded bloody mist, ability Marquis Brian Elric. Roel got it protective stone forces, capable reflect several attacks of the Master High level. Marquise. I noticed it in the boy set valuable artifacts and suggested surrender. Otherwise, he will cripple him and take him away, all by force. Stone deprived young man mobility, and if he stays in place, he will be caught. A jump of 50 meters did not give special advantages. Squeezing the handle of the blade until it hurt, he did mind choice and prepared for battle without fear and doubt. Marquis understood his decision and instantly appeared nearby, preparing to strike. Roel didn't slow down and activated ability Promise Grandera. While he was exchanging blows with Brian, above him, thanks to this force, appeared giant skeleton. Dimensions ghostly. The creatures terrified Brian. The prince's assistant rebuked the young man in that being heretic goes to Victoria, not understanding why fights Wade. But the situation was, where more difficult. This war had scale, far beyond the scope of revenge for his mother. The prince's memories were firmly lodged in his thoughts. Roella. Marie died due to illness because of their own knowledge how only her otherness became known. It started persecute regardless of origin and merit. Main purpose wars was victory over discrimination born different views, and the creation of a world without borders and oppression, where all people are equal. But now Roel was unable to think about the high ideals. It is necessary was survive and save Nora. For this should have fast eliminate Brian. Roel activated ability Elusive and appeared behind the enemy. However, Marquise. He parried the blow by throwing his sword back, and the attack was ineffective. Time of action capabilities expired, which came as an unpleasant surprise. Brian said the spell Blood Explosion. Throwing away Roella is significant distance. Marquise knew about the temporary restrictions forces young men, and all this time was waiting for the moment to counterattack. It seemed that the young aristocrat will never reveal the secret of Brian's longevity. Brian admitted that Roel there is talent, and with development, he is capable of becoming a great man. But it is precisely for this reason, as the enemy, he represented serious threat. Marquise struck a blow. However, Roel suddenly disappeared from the line of attack. By using Ponte managed to cast spells, protect the boy from a direct blow. Brian stated that young man is heretic, to which Ponte replied refusal handed over to the Marquise. Apologizing for the impossibility continue the fight, Ponte got it a small book and, dissolving into it pages, disappeared together with Roel. After long time, young man, finally I saw Nora and was convinced that she was okay. Although I was wounded. Tired, he fell asleep, and again turned out to be face-to-face with a giant skeleton. That noted that from everyone who received his power, Roel the first one who came back so quickly, and used it her twice in one day. Roel objected that this power was given to be used, and he simply played his trump card at a critical moment. The skeleton admitted that the young man was right. This power should not gather dust without doing anything. That's exactly why he handed it over her. Great warriors were determined courage that inspired fear of enemies. Second usage guy capabilities was reckless, but enemies will be on guard. The skeleton became curious as to why Roel used force for the first time. Was it really for the sake of an angel? Young man replied that did this because of the enemy's atrocities, and Nora was protected because believed that she deserves it. The skeleton thoughtfully noted that understands and guesses that young woman to him like. Roel became embarrassed and began to deny similar assumption. The skeleton waved it off, saying that it doesn't matter. Power is given 3 times, and the young man had already spent 2 uses. At the next, he is waiting for the meeting answer. He covered the guy with a bony with his palm, and that one woke up in bed, covered cold sweat. Nora happily hugged him and thanked him for saving her from the heretic. Bye. They exchanged with warm words. Into the room entered Victoria and Ponte, noting that even small children they can flirt. Roel noticed amazing similarity Nora and Victoria, and remembered gaming images. After Nora will be for several years, looked the same. Taking advantage of the moment, he asked Ponte about his relationship genus Askartov. That was surprised, and assumed that the young man was able to hold out in battle precisely thanks to strength kinship. Grabbing Roel by the sleeve, Ponte led him into the office while Nora screamed at them. Following, he explained that the family has special legacy, but in the 3rd century it interrupted. Only 2, like Roel, awakened the power. However, both disappeared without a trace, and if they died, then there was no trace left of them. The ancestor shed light on the secret, but family records are badly damaged, and about the ability almost nothing is known. Maybe she is related to research past and heritage, kind of what indirectly confirmed. Now Roel actually studies history, his family's. However, those two ancestors who awakened the power, by all accounts apparently died during travel to the past. On the system displayed time, 32 hours before they will be able to leave. Victoria decided give battle to the prince in the morning. Roel also noticed new rating, 87 points, which could change in either direction depending on his actions. Into the room Nora came in and said that will remain before the battle, because after salvation, she can't just leave. Her grandfather wanted that she became a witness events, and she was obliged to see all their own eyes until the end, and also did not want to part with Roel. Understanding seriousness situations, young man decided reveal the reason why the prince untied war. It has arrived decisive day. Armies Victoria and Wade lined up opposite each other. The prince was surprised that Victoria came out herself towards, remembering the fate their mother and, it seemed, having decided stop resistance. She said she wouldn't dissuade him from revenge, but warned him, it is impossible change all in one night. Consequences. The revolutions turned into rivers of blood in the capital within a month. Wade replied that revolution is impossible without victims, because to build new needed turn old to ashes. Realizing that they would not be able to reach an agreement, they drew their swords. Outcome this battles was predetermined from the very beginning. Cruelty in the name future justice and persistence confrontation for the sake of preservation today's stability. Two forces that came together in a deadly confrontation node. Everyone in this collision had mine look, your truth. Everything came down to one question, on whose you side and who is ready support until the end. Victoria had no numerical advantage, and to drag out the fight meant losing. Ponte, realizing this, activated Labyrinth. In an instant, space filled up thick smoke. Visibility disappeared, the enemies were disoriented, and confusion shackled their movements. From this gray curtains, Victoria and Ponte stepped towards the prince, holding the holy blade in their hands, which pulsated with a bright light, as if alive. The sword awakened its power, and a blinding beam capable of cut through the sky rushed towards Wade. The prince raised weapons, trying reflect a blow. Explosive collision waves scattered across the streets, destroying everything is on its own paths and shaking the entire perimeter. When shine went out, the prince was kneeling, leaning on his sword, heavily breathing and holding on with difficulty balance. Ponte approached, and in the air hung dumb a question that made it harder breathe. Before my eyes, images flashed through Wade's mind childhood. Bright, like morning solar light. Pictures, where mother plays with children from shelter. Memories changed darkness. Gloomy prison. Cold, hopelessness, and the death of the mother. But he didn't intend to fall. Desire to avenge the unjust sentence, the cruelty that killed her, kindled in his heart flame. The anger reached its limit. The prince's eyes turned red. Around him a bright red aura flared up, trembling like red-hot air. His breakthrough was obvious. Second true, a level achieved not by magic, but by willpower. That is, this made him invincible to Victoria. Roel looked at Nora. The moment came when hesitation is no longer possible. It is necessary, due choice. The prince rushed forward, driven idea justice without compromise, in which there was no place's mercy. Ponte hugged Victoria, pressing to himself, and activated stone capable reflect even the attack of the highest masters. Space cut through dazzling flash, but in the place where they only what were standing there was no one there anymore. After Ponte coughed upon landing blood, his body couldn't take it any more magical loads. Read the silhouette of the prince cut through space, unmistakably finding there among chaos. Ponte realized that the moment had come. It was time for the teacher and student to say goodbye. They didn't try again run. Their strength left them, and the impending lightning seemed like a death sentence. But Nora stepped forward. Protection blossomed into a dome, covering Victoria and Ponte, as if last block between them and death. At this moment, Roel was already behind the prince. In an instant, all changed. He again stood in the hall in front of the skeleton. He, feeling determination young men, again asked question. How dead transfer their power? In the head, Roella. There were two answers. One concerned the question itself. The second was about the essence interlocutor. The skeleton was thirsty here, both. Spirit, will, and aspiration are so dead, transfer their power to the living. Some leave behind books and chronicles, Others, discoveries and research. Others, ideals that carry through years. All this, merging, transforms ordinary pages live heritage. How more the years go by, the stronger connection between dead and alive, the stronger their influence. But the connection works only where there is air and what convey. The skeleton did not have neither one nor the other. He warned young man, be careful with your tongue. And Roll, I realized that I was right in my conclusions. It seems that the skeleton had no intention of killing him. Otherwise, it wouldn't have happened would help. The skeleton admitted. For his long, he saw life thousands of people, but only this stubborn boy dared throw to him challenge by word. He asked who they are related to each other, and I heard, friends. Then he, as a friend, asked to win. The prince, watching, realized that encountered favor ancient deity, and considered this trump card Roella. But then he said that for the ancients' gods, mortals are only toys, and brought down new blow. Discharge lightning pierced Roel, but he managed to intercept it with his bare hands. 494. The next step he took was to call Grandera, and that one showed up. This it wasn't just a gift, it was a real one, a pact with an ancient deity. Young man ordered Grandaru any at the price, take Nora. But he replied that them one hit is enough to win. The skeleton carried away a huge fist, and the prince put all his power into the sword. There the collision generated an explosive, a wave that rolled across the area. When dust settled down, in the epicenter stood two figures. Sword crumbled, leaving only the hilt. He collapsed to the ground, but still admitted that Roel managed to surprise him. Roel was, I am amazed that the enemy still could speak after such a blow. The prince asked why the one possessing heretical by force tried to stop him. In response, young man thought just about that. Now war is not needed. Forces should be directed towards the benefit of people. But there was also a personal reason. After all, if there is opportunity, raise the sword to protect close. Perhaps can we do it differently? Roel rose above the fallen enemy and recognized him as a worthy ruler, respected for his intelligence and talents, but not for his ideas. The system notified that target observers achieved, and the event came to an end. But the body, Roella now, looked half dead. Maybe it was the price of the power of an ancient deity. Speaking of grandeur, after that powerful ram from him, at least, there would be a squeak, as if evaporated. It turns out that the body Roella, now it can't withstand such loads. Victoria poked her finger at the boy's holy blade. When activated, its mana intertwined with the mana Nora, and now the sword could serve as a bridge for exchange energy. The boy, I took a chance to ask about the second, but Victoria, even she, didn't want to listen. She said it was just a conversation closed. Nora, with a touch guilt, apologized to him and advised him to bite his tongue. At the height of this serious Ponte's scenes, got in with his own sarcastic question. Isn't it too early, do you kids, like this? Games play? All it ended surprisingly sweetly. Easily kiss on the cheek. Alice. All this time sat by the fire, tormented thoughts about her brother. Thoughtfulness did not escape the gaze father. Didn't expect it she, what princess so daring will burst into their estate and, in fact, now offends Roella. The monarch realized that there is an effect between them connecting spell. It looks like one of them got hurt, and the other took advantage of with the power of the holy blade for healing. Hearing about the attack, he hurried here, but not finding enemies, decided that they managed it themselves. It is possible was exhale. Carter Ascart entered the hall, demanding find out what happened to his son. The monarch assured that there is no danger, although for some unknown reason, the boy doesn't move. He opened it wide, the door in front of Carter and Alice so that they themselves were convinced of his words. But what they saw made them freeze. In the room stood Roel, and Nora tenderly touched his cheek kiss. Of lovers lived in the capital heir's noble houses. Their marriages were already predetermined, and dreams of the future seemed quite achievable. But one day, left unattended, they decided not to hide more their own feelings, swore their love to each other, and ran away from home. No one could have imagined that this will take advantage insidious cultists who attacked them. Although they won, young man, received heavy wound. To save him, the girl gave away mine first kiss, filled by force healing. But this moment was caught by rescuers, and the secret came to light. Outward. The book went on to say that the secret affair was revealed, and for that, they paid the price at home arrest and severe punishments. Roel, indignantly slamming the book down, asked who at all I selected these pictures. And how did it happen that the stories are not similar to reality? She explained that the book was circulating among aristocrats, and there were 3 more copies there are in the military parts. But he ordered her urgently. Shut up. Suddenly even Alice asked him if it was really she is, for him, not good enough. Tears, the boys, fell on the table. She again avoided him, and he wondered were whether his efforts in vain. Anna suggested that perhaps the girl was simply jealous, and advised give her a few days to cool down. He chuckled, saying that it was still too early for her to be jealous. After all, she at all child. Then he asked what the problem was, and Anna, without hesitation, mentally replied that the problem was in him itself. Past week from the moment return. The history of the world has remained the same, as if they visited only in short copies, as in the game. But he became both stronger and poorer. Looking at the characteristics of the system, he noticed new ability. Spells Aryan type had buffs, unbelievable rare, but also expensive. Namely, thanks to this, Wade didn't leave Victoria, no the slightest chance. But now he's all I couldn't anyway, their reply. Since then, disappeared Grander, there was none from him, no news. Really? All rests on the absence true attribute? To strengthen himself a little, he asked the system to show elixirs with discount. Luckily, his father wasn't home, and no one would notice that he was drinking. All in a row. Taking advantage of the moment, he bought a jar. Meanwhile, Carter was talking to His Highness, regretting what had happened. His Highness admitted that situation was unpredictable and suggested unite efforts to develop countermeasures. First business, to ensure safety their children. Joe suggested that Nora be appointed as the protector. Roella. Carter is relieved. He exhaled. He was expecting more risky suggestions, but this too, it wasn't easy. There were already enough rumors. If you appoint a girl protector, won't poor Lee is this fuel to the fire? Joe replied that people always gossiped, and truth and lies lead eternal battle. And in periods when lie especially strong, light truth needed how never. The words sounded reasonable, but Carter still equals something seemed suspicious. Between their houses were in operation old contract. If in the Askartov house the child awakens with power kinship, carrier's angelic blood obliged guard it. Roll awakened pedigree their houses, contract remained in force, and the threat Zeklady was too big to be taken away from him, brush it off. The ancient god Grander, even without an attribute, managed win Wade with his second level. Ignore Roella it would be stupid. The maids were scared for Alice. She had disappeared appetite, mood dropped, and she even started eating with a fork and a knife. What for her was weird. They stood in a slender line, in a row, reporting the situation. Every time someone was knocking or walked down the corridor, Alice Sharp reacted. Young Mr. Same became, there is less. Appetite fell by a third. But considering that he is a glutton, it didn't look like disaster. Since already we couldn't cope on our own, so Anna suggested demolish the door separating the young master and Miss Alice. While the maids were taking away from Alice devices, one noticed that the gentleman also had an appetite trouble. Maybe it's the cooks? Recently, time he went every day darker than a cloud. If this continues, they feared, he would be in the very business. Maybe fall into depression. Alice was alarmed. What if this, because of the fact that she, all this time avoided meetings with him, and therefore he almost stopped. Girl decided that enough hide. Today she will dine at a big table and come what may will meet with his brother. But then one of the maids gasped. Is it really possible? Has Alice already forgotten the whole recent circus? Place she would? I didn't even look in that direction for a month. The second maid chimed in. They say, everything at the villa is for her mountain. And even if stars they will fall, we'll take care that Alice and Roel know we didn't come face to face. The words were, of course, a bit of an exaggeration, but they made Alice scratch back of head. Maybe it really is worth it. Think about how One maid nodded to the second one standing behind the door, as if to say, it was time to act. And she, like whirlwind, flew into the room, throwing it open doors and shouting, to the young master bad. Roel lying on the bed really looked so, although he thought that bodies with superpowers will survive any nastiness. Better Would I was simply knocked out. True, he felt like mana was in him grows. Illness is a small price to pay for such an increase in strength. The maid ran in and apologized for being so impudent. Invasion and carefully asked, and does not want will he make peace with the young woman? Madam Alice? The guy, lying down, flared up. He would have made peace 100 times already, if only she, at least she gave me a chance. Or did she weigh? Which special there is? She nodded. Yes, there is. But it will have to be done. Pretend sick. Roel rolled up eyes. What? Is my illness so unnoticeable? Here she flew in Alice and straight to the bed to him. From the threshold she was bawling that all this it's her fault, and it won't happen again. But Roel took the blame on himself. Supposedly, he neglected sister, deeply repents, and asks forgiveness. Alice, she just shook her head. No, it's my fault she, and more, he won't turn away. The main thing is that he doesn't die. Well, he didn't intend to, actually. Roel asked Anna to cook some porridge, and bring it along at the same time headache medicine pain. Strength all more cat, cried a lot. Anna froze in place, slightly in shock. He didn't look sick to her. Alice grabbed the plate and began to feed him with a spoon. Anna quietly slipped out the door, leaving them together, and she was sweetly touched by how cute they were. But the doors suddenly opened wide, and Nora walked onto the stage, brazenly interrupting feeding. She chuckled. Maybe it's better to leave it like this troublesome what's the maid's business, so that it doesn't happen extra speculations. Alice snorted. He weakened, and that's it. It wasn't a hassle at all. And anyway, he fed me every day. Nora turned to Roel. Every day, you say? The guy began to speak quickly. To justify that my sister just needs it was care. Nora immediately finished off with a question. Where is that room where you hugged? For 100 years, everything had changed, but it seems was somewhere around here. Now Alice narrowed her eyes. What do you mean, hugged? It turned out that Nora was on the way crossed paths with Uncle Carter. He's news. I haven't had time yet, Roelu report, and asked her do this personally. According to the ancient agreement, she now will become Protector Roela, and the vow this confirmed magic centuries. From this day on, he is considered almost a member of the royal families, the most close to Nora Man, and all who will try to offend him will spit against Wind's crowns. Alice bowed her head. How about this busy person? How her your highness, will he be able to? Personally, be protector? After all, next to her brother, she herself is who better her will be able to keep an eye on him? To settle the dispute, both turned to Roel. But that one chose the path of the wise, closed eyes, and decided that it's better to just sleep. When he was sleeping, the action medicines had passed, and he was able to again see Grandara. Roel asked why they met. If the power of kinship gives a chance to see forgotten events, how it is connected with a skeleton. Grandar shrugged, well, figuratively speaking, meaning, like, he became like that after deaths. Many I forgot. And anyway, he has a memory full of holes. The guy wasn't surprised. It was in his skull, same desert. The skeleton told what happened before him was many other people, from different countries and possibly eras. Everyone has it. There was a force similar to Roeleva, and even there was one strong, one human woman. But he didn't choose her. She didn't even listen to him. That woman claimed that between their births are ancient vow, and only people can call people like him for help. But they needed catalyst. She has was ring from his past life, and the guy has nothing, so he himself does not understand how he ended up here. Young woman nevertheless demanded that the skeleton should appear if she was threatened danger, but she was not his follower, so he is not obliged to help her. Roel asked who such followers. The skeleton explained, humans have 3 suitable attributes, and giants there was 1. Power. Those who developed this attribute founded your cult. Transcendence through special rituals could send requests and sacrifices to those who stands at the origins. And for this, in fact, the cultists live. Sometimes voices reached the skeleton, which meant there was still something in the world. There are those who uses the attribute of strength. Grandar would their subdue, but they are a bunch of weaklings. There is no use in them. Roel, I noticed that he was already on the 5th true level, and asked how much blows now will endure together with Grandar. The skeleton is just mentioned that maybe they would soon will be able to communicate without entering this world, but did not give a direct answer. Meanwhile, on Mount Kalon, in the lands of chaos, fierce a fight. Big muscular man with a ball interrupted all cultists who wanted to steal Scales the snake god without paying anything. And then it landed on his head. The elder said, that okay? What about this? A man, everything is fine. He dealt with those who had already made their way into the village. He also said that it doesn't matter. Cultists. Now it's no longer a problem. Their deity has awakened. That only laughed, and for that, got hit on the head. The elder added that many who has strong spiritual feeling in the village, too, saw vision. Later, we all got together to share that I saw one of them, and it turned out that visions coincide. This was boy on the shoulder of a huge skeleton. But in this vision, they were just playing dominoes. The dark-haired man laughed, but then became serious. Association traders Marty already had her eye on them. Target, Scales, Snake God. But not everything is so rosy. If they will be deprived protection idle, village will find himself in a deadly situation, dangers, and in this case, residents will be left only take refuge in the mountains. In the city of Rose was some Miss Charlotte of the Sorofia house, in whose house all the money in the world is concentrated. She arrived at the residence Mr. Robert, but before that got acquainted with his financial report, and it looks like his income this year significantly grew up. She threw papers in the air and said that his license was for the Rue Osier, will immediately withdrawn. And that's all because he was mired in gambling games, and from it no longer smells profit. Also, her maid reported that in the lands of Chaos Trading Association, Martha found population possessing the artifact Scales, Snake God. And she said, that house Sorofi. I'm ready to pay them any amount for the extraction artifact. If all will pass successfully, perhaps she finally will be able to replace father. Falling asleep, Roel saw Nora's leg on him and was stunned. She, in turn, congratulated him on the fact that he was able to break through to the 5th true level. But whatever it was, she had already developed your own kinship to silver qualities. Therefore, a guy, in any case, one step lower her. But still, she didn't come here to throw her legs over the guy, but for the fact that she just needs to talk to him about something more important. He gave Nora the last materials that he managed to find, and the result of kinship shows that Felder and Brian are indeed the same person. Princess asked again, really? That valiant a knight? He is, isn't he? Doesn't look like Brian's snake at all. According to historical records, Felder finished life suicide. Possibly occultists were able to somehow revive it. The princess said that will ask his family pay attention to this attention. Also, after returns, she dug through set sources, and she managed to find something secret. Namely, that she is a descendant of Prince Wade. In their world, the prince suffered defeat in War Gemini, and was sharpened into custody. William, Victoria's husband, is actually business was disguised a maid. She played a prank. This performance is for the Marquise of Ponte. A few years later, Death Victoria, Marquis, also mysteriously disappeared. They both are powerful transcendents. Therefore, rather in total, they more alive. If he is alive, then his diaries are still there. Continue, which means these pages more no historical, they don't represent any value. It's better total their burn. We need to understand what it is lies the power of the attribute of origin Roella, and this can do only through strengthening bodies. What then? Could the attribute crown mean? He took out one of books on the shelves in the hope of finding the answer in the family books. Vincent and Roy Ascarta were surrounded attention-powerful women of both were serious quarrels with them. And what's more, both disappeared after left from home. Young Mr. exhaled because his story was, no, the drops are not like theirs. He doesn't have that much formidable brides. All over, apparently, the possessions of the House of Ascart are poorly explored. It is not surprising that his family is still in decline. Mountains in the south possessions. Askartov border on the trade the union of Rose and Roelu. I wanted to somehow try to improve the paths. In the hall of St. Sacier got ready. Very many people to watch the ceremony. Nora Zeklid now, with the testimony of many, he promises to execute ancient vow royal house and become a protector descendant of the House of Ascart, Roel Ascarta. And after these words started ceremony, Roel, I started to kneel in front of her because that's what I was supposed to do. But Nora said that it wasn't necessary, because she doesn't like it when close people kneel before her in front of everyone. They both took up one hand on the blade and said a promise to each other connected with the ancient vow. And after said by them words from the sword went, very big pillar Sveta. This merger pedigrees results in an exchange of gifts. Transferred spell may be of any nature, offensive, defensive, or restorative. Nora, with interest, I looked in his direction. Could it be that a new one had been transmitted? Blade ability? Once in 7 days like that, she will be able to check where he is and with whom. Many approach the guy just to shake his hand or say a few words. But points everyone has attachments, some of them grew towards the guy. The same thing happened with the princess. Everyone who was suitable had to was wish her something. She came up to her. Alice asked not to worry. She appreciates what Princess does for protection her brother, and she doesn't have any intentions make her life difficult. Alice doesn't think that it's bad, if Princess will protect him instead, her. She won't enough strong to do this the most. When we met at a banquet, she was small, powerless a girl, but less than in 2 months I was able to advance to 5th original level. The princess asked her directly, "Wants she replace her? Then let her try. She will let her know how big the difference is between them." Roel followed his father until he didn't come out from the banquet hall. Then he asked him why he came. Here. But Carter said he wouldn't come back. Home with them. Because it's just work. After banquet will convened extra military advice, so that he will not be able to return with him. Bent over closer to his son, and whispered in his ear that they discovered traces, several deviants moving around the area, fortresses, Tark. Roel stood staring at the clock. It had passed. Whole 9 hours from the moment their returns, it seems. Circumstances were so complicated that father all not yet. The maid suggested guys go sleep. However, Alice firmly stated that, "We'll wait returns, father." How much would time this no took? And here it is. Finally, the door opened. Father came back. In his gaze was read tired, but he clearly intended to talk to the children about something extremely important. For the military protection, native lands are sacred business. Carter was afraid that war will drag on for years, so he, without long thoughts, appointed Roella, trusted the owner estates. On the same day, the family left the capital. The father went to the front, and the farm required supervision. Nora asked to write to her every week. Alice noticed that the letters would be only distract a brother from his duties, and the benefit from it, none. To the estate, they profit together with personal royal guard. A gift from Nora. At the helm, detachment stood captain by name Dirk, who straightaway introduced himself to the new master. Roel saw before him a chance to strengthen House Askartov. First, he decided that the roads and farming need to be put in order. The order followed quickly. People left prepare wood. Walking through the village, Roel saw garbage piles, potholes on the roads, and houses that had been renovated needed 5 years ago. Spectacle caused Lungwish turn around and leave. He checked with Dirk if it was finished. Examination level life. Captain reported that people live next to the trash cans worse than in the city. Roel ordered all remove and use kept by him sacred relics that noticeably improved health residents. Returning in the carriage, he saw people greeting him with joy and hope. Success! The 3 Axes project inspired him, and he decided to bring the prosperity of the House of Ascart to the maximum. In this, Charlotte was in the office at that time, his own father, Bruce, in trade confederations. She was tormented by thoughts of the approaching curse, country's chaos. Bruce wanted to hear her opinion about the House of Askartov. Charlotte believed that land's promising, but the previous manager was weak. Father showed report. New owner raised welfare poor, and income increased by 150%. A proposal for a joint venture was received development, and Bruce asked if she agreed. She go to negotiations. She agreed, and then he said that Roel Ascart is her fiancé. 3 years later, Sacred Capital celebrated birthday princesses. The princess, however, preferred privacy with Roel, whom she had not seen for 3 years, to the banquet. I was wondering why the daughters of the Duke of Lucerne surrounded him, and what they said. Roel explained that they asked about the secrets of success, but the interlocutor was already thinking about something else. I decided that it was time to move from talk to action. Attempts Roella call for help came across her a categorical, "Don't interfere." Salvation came in the form of Alice, who asked to stop bullying a brother. Alice appeared at exactly the moment when situation in the room started rapidly to go beyond the bounds of decency, and said that the Lord Father came back. Girls, again, got into an argument about who owned it, Roel, as if there was no diplomacy in the yard reception, and an auction for the sale of rare artifact. Father glanced son intently with a glance, and, it seems, remained, "I am happy with my figure and posture," clearly felt bearing and proud, the legacy of the House of Ascart. Roel, remembering previous letters, "I couldn't understand how a busy person state business suddenly turned out to be here." Nora understood perfectly well that complete it in a short time, impossible. So something important, forced him to talk to his son personally. And the important thing turned out to be more important: how unexpected. Roel already has the bride, and her name is Charlotte Sorofia. Nora looked at the document and was almost speechless. That's it. Confirmed and also official marriage contract. For the princess, it became news extremely unpleasant. In her presentation, any another option would better than exactly this young woman. Alice felt lung tension and asked thoughts burrows about the mysterious rival. It turns out that Charlotte has magic where more dangerous than simple charm. And perhaps this power is her gift genus. The situation turned into an unexpected alliance. Nora and Alice decided unite efforts for one goal: to terminate engagement. Because Charlotte had never seen Roella, they were going to present him in the most unattractive way possible light, so that the girl herself refused the marriage. Having shaken hands, they, as if they had made their own little secret, a treaty where the role of the villains became a weapon for the sake of salvation, Roella. The one being saved, in this time, sat on a chair and tried to digest what 2 years later, Calm Life's plot decided to turn in a completely different direction, new side. Explosion emotions girls was so strong that now, for the sake of one lines, events had to be sacrificed another. And yet he remembered that in the original Charlotte's stories were her own against of this marriage. And that means costs unite with her and break it. Back in the family estate, Alice, together with Roel, immediately began searching. Among the technicians left by Ponte, our sure too was something special. And indeed, in one from the books Alice discovered carefully enclosed envelope. He was written ancient language Ossetian Empire that has sunk into oblivion back in the year 378 of the Third Eras. The envelope itself is like exuded accumulated for centuries' experience. The seal belonged to the house of Sorofia. The letter stated that Charlotte would arrive in 2 days. Alice suggested wait and ask her questions directly. In the house of Sorofia, the fate of women always was taking shape equally sad. Unhappy marriages, broken life. But Charlotte wasn't going to repeat this way. Her father claimed that for the first time in 100 years, heirs straightaway 2 great houses were born in the same year. Perhaps this is a sign of fate. His personal maid decided arrive earlier ladies. Roel was sleeping peacefully at that moment. Anna explained, "What, young mister, yesterday, too much late finished business." But as soon as she approached his room, from there came out Alice. For her, this looked like shocking. Brother and sister in one room at night? Complete nonsense. As if on schedule, Nora appeared at that moment, wearing a provocative costume with a collar and a whip, demanding that Roel be found. Anna almost turned white with horror, sure that she had fallen into some kind of trap. The princess, having received no answer, declared that she would go to the young man herself. Too, it was already great the desire to have fun with him. Grace the maid knew that Nora had long since stood up for her Roella, but I never thought that this will manifest itself in this way. And then the maids carried it out dress Alice, on which showed off bloodstains, stating that at night young mister was too rude. For Anna, this has already become surreal. You can't allow a young girl the lady to settle in a place where is happening similar. When Charlotte finally set foot on the land Askertov, her maid did not miss a thing seconds and immediately reported about everything that I made it in time notice. In her understanding, marriage of convenience was nothing other than profitable agreement between 2 houses. And only the will of one from the parties could violate this delicate balance. Exactly. That's why solution ripened fast. Needed was to nudge the young gentleman in the right direction. After formal greetings, Roel invited guest for a cup of tea. And in this gesture there was more caution than politeness. But instead, conversation. They only sat staring at each other until Roel didn't dare get it found letter. But at this moment, attention girls. It wasn't the letter that attracted me, but the red one. The mark on his neck is bright, provocative, as if dumb reproach. She was embarrassed, apologized for the awkwardness, and admitted to herself, this engagement, it seems big to her mistake. She suggested fortune-telling on a coin. Eagle is happiness, tails is misfortune. The fate of the family, according to her, should manifest itself even in such a simple testing. But fate seems to joke. The coin came up heads. For the most, Charlotte. This, it was a shock. After all, such an outcome I didn't expect that at all. Counting loss random, she flipped the coin again. Heads, once again, eagle. And so on, time after time, until Roel didn't intercept her hand in the air, hinting that it was time to stop. Young woman was taken aback, throwing a look at the maids, who were already openly choking with laughter. Her eyes got too wet, many strange fell in one day. She barely heard, muttered that badly myself feels, and hurried to leave. Later, her maid Grace explained. Fortune-telling is not a sentence. Too many factors affect the result. Charlotte reluctantly agreed. For her, marriage has always remained risky business, and play with fate she didn't intend to. But the next day, she nevertheless returned to the dinner table. Politely, reservedly, but sincerely asked for forgiveness for her yesterday impulse. After thoughts, she admitted, she wants to terminate the contract. Moreover, I am ready to pay 300,000 gold compensation. For Roel, it sounded like a chance. He had, after all, debt of 350,000. But young, the gentleman could not come to terms with how cheap appreciated name Askertoff. 300,000? Really? Their an ancient family is worth so little. Charlotte, without hesitation, raised the rate to 400,000. However, Roel continued to talk about holiness agreements and respect for their union's houses. Young woman understood hint instantly and already offered 500,000. He's pretty clapped his hands in agreement. For the House of Asgard, he said, marriages for love are important, and therefore no one will interfere her solution. But in her soul, Charlotte felt strange, as if her skillfully circled around fingers. Nevertheless, talk switched to another. Roel mentioned an old letter that found among books. On print, Alela. The golden rose is the symbol of the Sorofiev house. It was worth it them together touched the paper as if before your eyes flared up vision. Endless seas, majestic flotillas, ships sailing towards legend. Shocked scene, Charlotte firmly stated that come back home is not going to happen anymore. After all, the legend of the Golden Fleet was passed down in her family from generation after generation. A tale of greatness and damnation, rooted outgoing another third era. It was said that it was created with the help of elven magic and wealth kingdoms, Sophia. He made escape the Kraken itself, opening the way from north to south. But for disobedience to the gods, the kingdom was wiped off the facelands, and only House Sorofi saved a particle of ancient blood elves. Now, Charlotte asked for help. She needed there were records that will help revive her strength genus. But Roel, they were not there. The vision happened because of the fact that the genealogies resonated. Realizing this is Charlotte offering to get closer and extending her hand, ready to pay 1,000 gold for one touch. At that moment appeared Grandar advised agree. But nothing happened, so young woman suggested the next step is a hug, already in 2,000 gold. Roel, of course, didn't burn desire, but the price was too much tempting. He hugged her. But even then, the result was 0. And, looking at his neck, Charlotte did not notice any changes. Charlotte noticed something strange. Roel himself seemed unaware of what was on his neck. There was a hickey. But I felt it on this place pulsation mana. The idea that track was artificially created did not let go her. Really? Someone did it. This, on purpose? At that moment, into the room entered Alice. She said that if brother specially refuses food for the sake of divorce engagement, then she is ready to feed him. However, the first thing I saw, how Roel and Charlotte stood too close to each other, almost in an embrace. Right there she is, it dawned on me. There was a hickey, the work of precisely Alice. From her. It emitted exactly the same aura as this one strange trace. Roel was already getting ready to justify herself, but Charlotte managed to first. She silently offered 3,000 gold in exchange for him playing along with her. And he, without hesitation, agreed. Soon presented Charlotte's younger sister, Alice. Young woman immediately apologized to her, explaining all their first meeting with Roel when emotions took over. Alice froze in bewilderment. Her plan was falling apart. Charlotte was disappointed in brother after what happened. They are with Nora arranged. From this moment, she decided, observe. Whenever noticed their walks or quiet conversations, her heart was filled with annoyance. Besides, Charlotte paid Roel several times each time. Thousands gold for their ostentatious rapprochement, and now she paid him too. That sat with her. Then Alice, I understood. Brother finally ended up in her authorities. Money. Subjugated his will. But deep down, she also understood. The status of the younger sisters don't do her rival Charlotte. Real threat came from another. From His Highness. Passed one more night. Roel, until late midnight, I was digging through the books, trying to find at least hint at a solution. Half a month efforts, and none the slightest progress. Charlotte was amazed. His tenacity looked like too much sincere, so that fit into the usual framework agreements. When she invited him to go for a walk to the night butterflies, her gesture looked quicker recognition of his efforts than simple entertainment. Some centuries ago, the Emperor Ossetian empires did proposal to the Queen of Ron. After why did he pour mana into the night butterfly, turning her as a symbol of love. Since then, every winter, before hatching butterflies, here flocked aristocratic couples. The place became sacred for lovers. Roll. I was thinking about something else. Austin was 1,000 miles from his estate, so it was impossible to move them. Only the power of the Sorofievs could get here. Stone Gemini. In the hall for Austin nobility, they suddenly saw Charlotte's mother with a man who was definitely not her father. Roel instantly decided that became witness betrayal and almost proposed collect proof. But Charlotte stopped him. It was different. The meeting was appointed specifically for her. 5 years have passed since she saw mother for the last time. Their marriage with father was total only a union of convenience, and now Adelia Milton looked at her daughter as a disgrace to the purebred family. Maybe B? This was indignation. Or maybe to be Charlotte indeed feels some kind of affection for her and asked herself if she was stupid she herself. But Roel supported her. In his eyes, the fault lay not with Charlotte, but with the woman who did not know how value own daughter. At this moment, the voice of the manager spread throughout the hall, greeting the guests and announcing holiday open. Began. Everyone. It was necessary to invest their mana into incubators with butterflies. Adelia put in the power of the attribute Kingdom, wishing prove that her butterfly, it will turn out the most bright. She wanted to show superiority genus. Roel, observing this, asked the mentor about the power of the kingdom. He acknowledged the power of the attribute, but compared to Roel's gift, it was only a trifle. He asked Charlotte not to be jealous. After all, the most purebred and beautiful the girl was right next to him. Incubators shone. According to them, surfaces ran cracks. From the inside broke out a golden butterfly, shining like a piece of sun. She spun around Charlotte and rushed up. Manager announced her sparkling butterfly years, the rarest species, royal. The miracle was explained simply. It was real love did the impossible. Soon, manager with a smile asked if it was a couple they. Having heard answer that they married, he proposed to execute tradition, the ritual of kissing good luck. And when their lips touched each other, around flared up powerful magical flows. In the head, Roella, the image of 2 flashed kissing figures. The man is amazing, looked like Vincent Ascarta, and the girl resembles the grown-up Charlotte. Under applause in honor of the true love, they left the hall to rest in your quarters. Adelia never recognized her daughter. Perhaps she never wanted to. But Charlotte, clinging to Roel, still asked what he saw during kiss. And he confessed. In a vision was his ancestor, Vincent Ascart. That one, the very one called Lord Estates. Charlotte, too, saw his own ancestor, Queen Sophia Isabel. They're both the secret of the assembly was connected Twilight wise men. When their family erected own net intelligence, they attracted people from the infamous clan of assassins, the House of Karash, but there no longer existed. Roel was amazed at how so powerful organization, where consisted representatives the most noble houses, could disappear without a trace. He decided go to another room and spend the night separately from Charlotte. In oblivion, he dreamed of a woman with a crown on her head, as if mistress distant kingdoms. She kept him in a magical dome. Her sight was strict, and words were required only one thing, to survive. Though to them, next meetings. Roel Sharp woke up. Cold rain, hitting the deck, and red system warning letters above the head. In a few moments, there was something soft nearby, as if another body was transferred along with him. This there was Charlotte. They were standing on the deck of an old ship. The guy realized their strength kinship abandoned them in the year 261 of the Third Era, on the ship of the Golden Fleet. From sea depths climbed creature, more total resembling a fish with human legs. Creature rushed to attack, but Roel gathered himself and threw him back with a blow. For the first one, creature followed new. Charlotte activated her power. Her hands turned into cannons, and she unleashed a barrage of shots on the monsters. The system issued notice. Rating passing events too low. Raise her can only murder enemies. It became clear, even enemies slain Charlotte were considered to be counted. The girl did not retreat. She reminded him that it was not the cargo, but the bride, and therefore continued to fire. Captain Jeff of the ship, who reached 3rd true level, fought so that board's decks were shaking under his power. He ordered your people should hold on, after all. If one of them falls, there is no one will start the engine and return the ship home. Electric, the network held the last minutes, and Jeff ordered to all pull yourself together and break through. Vice Captain, responsible for activation Imperial spells, preparing for the decisive step. Soon Roel and Charlotte were spotted on deck. They outfits straight away issued belonging to the nobility. They were joined by a grander, dressed in armor that replaced to him true form. Jeff noted magic precious stones in Charlotte's hands and realized in front of him was a member of the Imperial families capable of launching a ship engine. At this moment from abysses rose Kraken. His tentacle almost reached Charlotte, but Roel obscured her by yourself. Grander calculated that one blow was not enough, but two should be enough. The first blow scattered pieces of flesh across the waves. Second finished off half of the monster's body, and the Kraken crashed into the ocean. High, because of the lens binoculars, watched Elf. Amazing, similar to Charlotte. To Roel came up Jeff. He realized that he was not dealing with simple people guests, and answers, there was no waiting. Soon attention turned to Charlotte. Only she could steer the ship. The ship was propelled by electricity network controlled only Imperial blood. Seconds left before the shutdown. Girl activated mana and touched panels. The net came to life above the ship rose shining dome. Jeff gave the order. Target determined, the shot in a minute, and invited the couple to watch the upcoming spectacle. Right opposite stood more alive Kraken. Hundreds volleys, they tore it apart completely, and the night sky was lit up by fireworks. The power of the Golden Fleet was astounding. After the Empress herself climbed onto the deck of the mooring Sophia Isabella, she praised Jeff for his performance. But treated the uninvited guests wary, wondering question. Didn't send Lee their convocation saints? Roel came out forward and bowed his head before the Queen. His appearance carried an important, the goal is to convey wish of the House of Askartov on behalf of Patriarch Vincent Askarta. Isabella was surprised to see him in front of her. Man. Young heir reminded her of the letter that spoke about her arriving at the port of Deveroga in the middle of April. He added that the head of the family teleported him here to help her, and handed over a letter with the house seal. After of this sight, Queen's turned to Charlotte. The girl showed a sign confirming her origin, and asked for patronage. For the sake of the future, the head of the house entrusted her to turn to the Imperial House of Sophia, and the precious stone evidence confirmed her words. It came as a surprise to Isabella that those with whom we broke up, we still managed to survive. Roel realized that Charlotte was no less him in art skillfully confuse heads of people. They moved around the hall, the walls whom were in gold. Young mister involuntarily, I thought they smelled the scent of profit, just like the house in Sorofia 800 years later. While he was immersed in his own thoughts, the Queen suddenly clarified, indeed, Lee they engaged. Charlotte did not confirm. She admitted that her father considers military the power of the House of Asgard necessary, therefore families, and entered into a marriage contract. Isabel answered with a cold sadness. After all, she herself, same was engaged to Vincent Askartum and knew what he was expecting her in the port of Deveroga, together with the egg. Their path led to the egg itself. It turned out to be one of the 6 disasters, the Egg Creator Glacier. These 6 disasters were legendary monsters that appeared after death mother goddesses, and they became the culprits, the death of many ancient civilizations. The Queen confirmed, the ruler darkness, light eater, and creator glaciers are precisely those disasters that managed identify assembly twilight wise men. Egg Creator Glacier now transported Golden Fleet. It was only possible restrain with seals, but destroy is impossible. Too much many forces interfered to this. The Sea People, Thirsty Returns publisher, conservative part of Sophia's house, and the Gordon-led Convocation Saints. To maintain seals was required Golden Soul, and her consumption seriously weakened ship's capabilities. Continue its further, and the enemies overtaken there. So to the rescue sent Roel and Charlotte. There the task turned out to be more difficult than it was assumed when they will find themselves surrounded enemies, and victims cannot be avoided. If it works out, subjugate this ice power, ship will be able to speed up and break free from the chase. At this moment, Systemic Window notified Roella on that the level of its assimilation too low. He was offered purchase a support system. Price amounted to 300,000 gold coins, and with a 10% monthly interest, because this was not his first loan. Meanwhile, in real life, time Port Davaroga remained damned frozen place, and now ere I understood the reason for this. Roel understood this sailing for the fleet last. The thought that Charlotte had been drawn into his adventure made him feel heaviness guilt. But he was her fiancé, and therefore obliged her protect. So he accepted conditions systems. Approaching closer to the egg, he heard Isabella's voice begging him to retreat because of the deadly cold. But to her amazement, Egg recoiled from Roel, as if frightened. When he touched it with his hand, the attribute of origin activated, and the system started the process assimilation. In the air appeared back countdown. Egg furiously resisted, trying to freeze it. Charlotte stood behind him, placed her hands on his shoulders, and put her strength into him. Her magic wasn't enough. Spell only delayed process glaciation, and she was afraid that he would die before will complete absorption. Isabella was surprised by the power pedigree Askartov decided intervene. After all, duty senior sisters. Help. She ordered Charlotte attentively watch. After all, such is true way applications their pedigree. They were not servants of someone else's will, but creators' destinies. Their power could tip the scales. When back the countdown has reached 0, Roel managed absorb part strength and gained ability ice-cold touches. But at the same time, his body began to rapidly cool down. Side effect, assimilation. Only a golden soul could suppress it. Too much many ice energy raged inside, and remained the only one the way is to pour into it golden soul. This could have been done only his bride. After all, their destinies were connected. Method was simple. A kiss. Their attribute of origin predetermined loyalty only to one chosen one. Isabella said that next to such a man, always others will circle women. And if she doesn't decide, she's taking a risk, lose your own place next to him. In her memory, surfaced episode when Roel's younger sister and one of princesses tried to destroy their union, having arranged clever performance. Now Charlotte called upon the power of her golden soul and kissed him. Roel came to his senses. His body again filled up life. Strong. Magic requires boards. But Magic Charlotte brought him only salvation. They had 2 days of relative freedom left. Security. Let they are not destined to be see how the Golden Fleet will arrive in the Two Horns. But history they already knew. Thanks to efforts, Isabella was a disaster overcome, and human civilization continued your own existence. On deck, one of conservatives of the Sophia House with distrust said, "After all, her fleet majesty must was going to die. Who helped? Them?" Douglas, head convocation saints, replied that intervened another owner pedigree and golden soul. And this meant only one thing. Now Isabella, an ally, appeared, who was capable activate eternal seal. When the queen came out on deck to Roel, her was interested question, where more personal. She clarified that she liked it. Lee him Charlotte. That one admitted to himself the obvious. Although their relationship more full contradictions, but the answer was affirmative. Isabel applied eternal seal for success transportation tasks eggs. And how? Only this is a security measure activated, hardened, the golden soul will melt, tones liquid. The golden soul will be exhausted, source disasters in the depths of the sea. She was the only one whose pedigree was clean enough to call forth the power of Eternity Prince. But with the advent, Charlotte all changed. Gordon was, it is known about her nature, and he probably will take steps against girls, so the queen hoped that Roel will do everything to protect her. Young Mr. considered protection brides his duty and swore that will make every effort to save her life. The queen noted that he looked as serious as Vincent when says the oath and thought, is not Lee this feature genus, Askartov? Their conversation interrupted alarm. A conservative of the House of Sophia appeared on the horizon, united with the sea people. Charlotte was in the cabin at that moment, and mentally, she was addressing her fiancé. But suddenly, Douglas entered the room. He swung to kill her. However, suddenly appeared Roel and closed girl himself, taking the blow upon himself. Douglas did not show much irritation and continued execution assignments, concentrating all attention only on Charlotte. At this moment, that mysterious one appeared again, the girl who brought Roel into this world, and extended her hand to him, giving him his own blessing. Waking up, he instantly saw deadly danger to the bride and struck the enemy. Realizing that the advantage is not on his side, Douglas began to dissolve in the water, trying escape through the window. Roel ordered Charlotte activate protective item and stay in place, while he rushed after the enemy. Douglas believed myself immortal in the ocean. but his confidence trembled when suddenly in front of him appeared young Sir. Roel rushed forward and found himself right in front of the enemy. It has begun a fierce battle where forces water and ice collided in a deadly whirlwind. For Douglas, was surprise to meet so gifted carrier pedigree exactly here, in his world. But Roel indicated his weakness. The ability to control water in reality was useless trash, good for only for cowardly attacks from shadows. These words enraged Douglas, and he turned into a murderous spiral wave. In response, Roel activated Eye's petrification, forcing the spiral freeze and collapse into the abyss. So the enemy found his death. Back on deck, the young mister found himself in the arms Charlotte, who knew that murderer no longer a threat them. Meanwhile, Isabella stood opposite another conservative with a gun and demanded capitulations. But suddenly, a noise rose up behind them. Huge cloud-black smoke. The conservative responded that resist it's pointless. They always were servants of the Mother Goddess, and the divine retribution will cleanse all traitors. Not wanting to listen fanatical speeches, the queen shot and got rid of him. She knew that in front of them was one of disasters that destroyed civilizations, and recognized in the dark fog of the Lord of Darkness. The queen ordered to close rows, getting ready meet the monster face to face. Lord of Darkness launched a swipe at the fleet, calling the people ignorant. Many people fell overboard and fell into the ocean. Isabella, using the power of the golden avatar, held them back and prevented them from dying. But the encounter with disaster proved too much heavy. Even the power of the second, the level and power of the Golden Fleet could destroy only country, but not the creature that erased entire civilizations. But the collision proved too much heavy. Even the power of the second level and fleet could be destroyed only country. But there was something that erased entire civilizations. Against the 6 disasters of this was not enough. After all, humanity, always it turned out, weaker. There was less than a day left, and now hope was only for the eternal seal of Charlotte. She showed the groom a stone, a heart protector, artifact of the 7 highest precious stones mixed with his blood. This was spell life. She attached it to Roel's chest and pushed him off the deck, sacrificing himself for the sake of his salvation. Same one was waiting for him in the water, mysterious lady. She reminded him about his feelings for the girl, because at this rate she could lose life. Then followed question of fate. Roel replied that beauty is in the eyes the beholder, and fate is choice. His answer pleased her, and she decided help by warning that the monster's strength is superior, all he can do, imagine. If he wants to fight, the price will probably be his life. But he was ready fight. From depths appeared world. The snake is majestic, huge, and beautiful. Roel, I realized that in front of him was the goddess of the earth herself, Petra. She clicked fingers, and he found himself in a shining dome with an imprint ancient spells. In this time, Charlotte and Isabella, holding hands, desperately fought with the Lord of Darkness. But their forces were insufficient, and the monster was preparing to deliver the decisive blow. He was stopped, roy gold butterflies that escaped from depth's ocean. Charlotte realized that this was Roel. He felt like his life force was draining away, and he asked the goddess why she stopped. She replied that he showed her the greatest beauty. Dance. Butterflies. And in the name of this, she will lead him to victory. From depths rose blue the snake and thrust fangs in the Lord of Darkness. There was a blow so strong that enemy crumbled into pieces and disappeared. The task was done, and the snake returned to the ocean. Thanks to Golden to the butterflies, sent Roelum, Charlotte, and the Queen were able to find him. But the consequences applications, the powers turned out to be terrible. His abilities squeezed out body dry. If wouldn't it be strange immortality, then he certainly couldn't take out. Ordinary methods healing. Here were powerless. They touched upon external wounds. Then, how is his exhaustion was going deeper? All that was left was to hope for the golden soul. Isabel reminded Charlotte about what she taught her. Until the guy recovers, she must be near him, because that's it, real duty wives. At this point, the system started the reverse countdown. There was only 5 minutes. Roel got up and remembered that must-ask most important question. He asked what will be if after recovery will want, join the assembly Twilight Wise Men, and how is this maybe? In reality, to join, he wasn't going there. The organization had long since sunk into oblivion. But too many, there are no secrets left for her beyond. Charlotte, too, became interested in this topic and asked about the creator assemblies. It became known that she arose before the end previous eras, but the name founder preserved only in memory leader. famous as the Great Sage. Every year, the assembly took away talents from country's scientists. For introduction was required 2 recommendations, one of which could have been issued by Queen Isabella herself. In real-life time, the assembly has long since disappeared into the shadows. But if we'll be able to awaken some ancient artifact, attention her survivors' members will attract. Seconds rapidly melted. The guy admitted that in the near future time won't be able to get the assembly item and asked Isabella where to look for it. She suggested, should find Drunkard Tranta in the Corin Forest, and don't forget to take some Conti wine with you. Meanwhile, anxiety reigned in the estate of the House of Ascart. No one understood where disappeared young Mr. and Miss Charlotte. The maid was in the room, Rowella, when place on the bed suddenly sparkled pixels. The next second, they appeared ourselves. But even after returning to reality, Roel did not come to his senses. Everything indicated side effects from a recent battle. For healing was required golden soul. Mana is the source, the body is the channel, and the golden soul was its continuation. Having felt tributary mana, Charlotte leaned over and kissed Rowella. But that wasn't enough. Grace, seeing that her madam gave the guy hers first kiss, was horrified. However, due from of this tragedies, she didn't. Instead of extra reproaches, she just asked what happened and how explain family Askartov the state of the young master. Charlotte replied that not worth it yet, to nobody, nothing to say. Better get ready to leave. They returned to Rose. Her eyes sparkled like shards of glass. Everything it looked like. They really run away. In this time carriage, Her Highness's Nori was already rushing towards the estate. Askartov. Inside, Alice was also sitting. Nora thought with annoyance that she had not been able to cope with Charlotte, and now forced to appear to her in such a state condition. And Roel, meanwhile, was located inside ice boulders. It embraced him. Bitter cold, yet suddenly didn't feel it someone's touch and kiss. After he discovered this eyes, consciousness returned, but he did not understand how much time passed. And where is he now? Looking around, he noticed Charlotte sleeping next to her. She was lying in an unusual position. Clothes, and her dream was too much defenseless, so as not to attract his gaze. The girl woke up. The guy admitted to himself that sometimes felt in my mouth something strange, like the illusion was breaking through into his sleep. Charlotte blamed it all on the thermometer, and then the affection scale blinked, adding a whole 80,000 points. Surprised, he noted that rich women not only generous with gold, but also capable of bestowing colossal devotion. Probably everything, guilt joint trials and tribulations together, deadly dangers. Effect suspension bridge sooner or later, late must fade away. But exactly, this event opened to him new bloodline, silver rank. Now his strength has become equal strength, Alice other. Looking around more carefully, he realized that located not in the room at all, but in the carriage, and asked where they are heading. Charlotte replied that takes him out into nature. The city is too noisy, and he is too weak for unnecessary shocks. Unexpected drowsiness covered him, and he again fell asleep. Family Askartov could have terminated contract with Siriev, since he suffered because of this girl's. Especially what is the princess theocracy will not remain on the sidelines. Charlotte understood. He himself was young. The gentleman is not as attached to her as she came to him. He stayed. There is only one way, to seduce him. When the princess's carriage arrived at the estate, the servants reported that Rowella is not at home. He didn't even take it with him, the holy blade, leaving only words about that is going to have dinner with Charlotte, and then disappeared. Between families, Askartov and Sorofiev, peace and mutual respect, always reigned respect. That's why Nora was, I am sure, that it was Charlotte who took him away from personal feelings. For the princess, this was incomprehensible. Girls so calculating and cold suddenly decided to take such a risk. But everything pointed to one thing. Charlotte was head over heels in love. Nora didn't act openly. She came up with a cunning move. Her decree accused Sorofievs in the kidnapping trusted faces of the House of Ascart. Using the right of the defender Rowella, she issued an order for complete blocking borders, estates Askartov. Roel himself, meanwhile, had long since lost check time. It seemed that their journey lasts third or fourth day. Nora claimed that only patience allows enjoy the beauty of the road, and with an innocent look, she fed him with a spoon. When is the plate? She was empty. The guy reminded her of the completed request, hinting that now it came time pay off a debt. But instead, he heard no answer, cold remark that from now on, all is not decided by him alone, but within the framework of their general budget. He realized that speech came up about marriage, which earlier we didn't even agree. And yet, inside he had a feeling that something in the situation is clearly not like that. In this time, Grace received a letter from a messenger. Entering the room, she whispered something quietly in her ear. After Charlotte suggested this, go out into the fresh air and admire snowy landscapes. They settled down near the southern borders estates Askartov at the winery and sipped wine. Charlotte asked him where he got so good from. Understands the subtleties winemaking. Roel explained that this is one of their politicians help poor, and he carefully I studied all the offers before, then to put your seal of approval on them. Having heard this, she couldn't resist new one's questions, amazed by the fact that it was he who became the author of the policy, in fact, giving poor means of subsistence. Roel gave it out ancient wisdom about fish. You can feed them for one day, but teaching them to fish is a subscription for life. Yours with his philosophy, he hinted that his policy spinning around that reveals strong sides each region and pump up the level of knowledge among people. Then the conversation smoothly turned to wine, and he declared that if the princess herself theocracies, if he takes on advertising it, then it's possible we'll go external markets. But before he could finish speaking, Charlotte suddenly grabbed his lip, clearly not wanting to hear about some princess. Charlotte reminded that the princess certainly has influence huge, but when speech it's about trade, isn't it the Sorofievs should be main choice? And she cheerfully suggested trust promoting wine to herself. After all, a head summer ruler, her products, where you can drink, will integrate with grace. Moreover, the slogan was already there ready. She was going to call it Romantic Aroma, and even mentally finished drawing wine label. Heart Roella was knocking at that moment, somehow suspicious unusual, as if a marching drum was playing. Meanwhile, to the border's possessions, Askartov, the princess herself, galloped up with the cavalry, and quite quickly came across the Sorofiev carriage. To the meeting, Grace the maid came out, explaining that young Mr. and Miss Charlotte left the carriage early, without waiting cavalry. Princess, without losing time, divided the detachment into 3 groups, and sent them to neighboring villages to cover with searches all around. In one from villages, she got me talking. I asked my grandmother about the strangers, and she confirmed that visitors, we were there, and even bought some wine. Then the grandmother waved her hand and added that they had gone towards the east. Borders. But suddenly, grandmother, as if by clicking, turned into Charlotte. Disguise worked perfect, and the princess was taken away in a completely unnecessary direction. Later time, they were already sitting far from danger, admiring starry sky, as if there were no chases. Roel thanked Charlotte for her help, and admitted to himself that, now feels myself where better. She asked carefully. Forgave he would have her, if would she suddenly did something is wrong and completely ignoble. He, with a smile philosopher, said that it is difficult to imagine, but if already such, if it happens, then with due care compensation will forgive a lot. She put her hand on his, and promised that all compensates to the last little things, and she also called him her favorite. And then, so as not to drag it out conversations, used her power and sent him into a sweet sleep. In this time at the estate, Askartov the princess was literally seething with anger that she was so stupidly fooled some kind of old lady in disguise. Now, she was, I'm sure that it was definitely Charlotte. Day and night I was looking for traces, bumping into only for hunters from villages. Nevertheless, she admitted that between things haven't been as smooth for Roel and Charlotte for a long time now. Was earlier. Alice added that they still had something left in their hands' trump card. The last word in the matter, marriage belongs not to his brother at all, but to his father. Who could think that living legend of the Empire Sophia more really exists and can intervene? Father praised Charlotte for she managed to single-handedly track down the Trax Empire's Sophia without losing her head. But she immediately clarified that she wasn't alone there. Roel was with her Ascart, whom, because of his wounds, he had to be secretly taken to Rosa for treatment. Father sighed and said, that understands her care, but decide everything this way is not an option yet. However, Charlotte did not give up. After all, there is a marriage between them contract, and she intends marry him, get married. What would this know? It was worth it. Father was slightly shocked such determination, but after pauses decided support her choice. With internal affairs, roses. All we sorted it out, but this was just the beginning. Much more loomed ahead, more major problem with external intervention. Finally, Roel woke up and saw next to me a bottle in which flickered golden soul. Looking around, he realized that located not at home at all, but on an estate, Sorofiev, judging by the interior. And then I immediately guessed what Charlotte meant when she spoke about something wrong. He's great. I understood what a scandal would arise if Nora and Alice, they will find out, but still hoped that the situation will not go beyond the limits. Hearing footsteps outside the door, he instantly pretended sleeping, having decided play the actor. Into the room, Charlotte came in and noticed that the bottle is already empty, although the guy stubbornly was lying in bed. She instantly realized that he was just pretends, and, in order to bring him to clean water, clamped down to him nose. After 10 seconds, he couldn't take it anymore and stopped, to depict sleeping, leaving pretense in the past. The boy wished good morning and light confusion realized that he doesn't have the slightest representations where they at all are located. Shilotu, a slight sense of alarm gripped him. His displeasure, it was felt in the air, and she hurried remind her that he promised to forgive her. He did not renounce his words, but emphasized that this at all a little other situation. She started building eyes and asked for forgiveness, promising to compensate for absolutely everything and everyone, trying act as charmingly as possible. Only one click fingers, Roel almost blinded me her when he appeared before him a whole chest of gold, shining by all possible shades wealth. There was something in the chest, million gold coins, and Charlotte knew that someone can count her act was low and vile, but her determination was visible in everyone her gesture. Roel only waved it off, quietly confirming that all forgiven. And more to that question, it wasn't worth going back. After he teleported this one money into the domestic space, and at the same time was able to extinguish all of his debts in the system, having decided straight away several problems. Charlotte suggested eliminate side effects, effects from his skill, but loss remaining vital. Unfortunately, she could not regain her strength. While everyone was there immersed in their own affairs, Royal enjoyed a rare moment of complete idleness. Suddenly, there was a systemic window. Everything was on sale. There was more than enough money, but the inscription, imperfect, was causing easy thoughtfulness. Judging by the description, the staff was created from the remains of the legendary monster many years later after his death, that hinted at materials not the first freshness. In the description, it was indicated that the staff possessed how both offensive and defensive abilities, definitely standing attachment. Not for long, thinking he sent system request for purchase staff nine-headed snake, completely trusting his intuitions. However, the staff looked weird and ugly and royal. He wondered what was wrong with him until it dawned on him. No drops. There is no mana in it. Usually, even among the transcendental tools, there is at least a little energy, but here was complete silence, maybe a treasure-required activation's magic. Going out into the garden, where hundreds birds arranged their concerts, he decided try activate the staff. Having directed a little his mana into the staff, he watched as black shell flew away, and the staff sparkled new light. Now, Royal realized that the system had not deceived him. The staff was definitely worth getting. But suddenly, someone called out to him from behind, asking what he was doing there. Turning around, he saw the goddess Petra, who with a slight smile noted that thing really not bad. She added that, this her offspring, all the snakes in this world were her descendants. War between saints, the animals were fighting between first Karen inhabitants for a tribute's origin, and one of participants was nine-headed snake. She endowed ignorant with wisdom, and the weak with strength, allowing them change destiny and blessed countless set creatures with the help of attributes. Meanwhile, those who wanted to accept the attribute and those who resisted entered into a fierce struggle, and without their attribute animal, the essence was revealed. Holding a staff in her hands, Petra said that she killed a snake do-it-yourself. War was tragic, but necessary. Royal asked if he was angry. She was on the fact that the staff was created from the carcass of a nine-headed snake. Petra only smiled, explaining that this totaled just a corpse of a dead person creatures, and now it's easier for her help to the boy. She asked him carefully watch, and then touched with the tip fingers to the head snake. Using her staff, she turned into a snake and twisted around Royal's hand, as if dancing. Then Petra explained that the staff was now received spell, stone, look, and suggested count this a small gift from myself. From afar, Charlotte was heard searching Royal, loud calling him, Petra. I asked when to expect it, child, because the Ascart's too few descendants, and Royal, as if obliged, expand the family. He is noticeable blushed, when he heard that she means birth child. After all, she more too young. Then the goddess asked how much days they are already sharing a bed. But there is still no child. Being a goddess lands that own wealth, all planets, and blessings life, she, of course, offered to bless Royal. But he is cowardly pressed against the hand on which sat Snake, and shouted that to him nothing is needed. He has it. Everything is fine. Finally, Charlotte came and asked with interest what he was doing and why. Screams. There was a man standing nearby Andrew, the Wanderer, a scientist who might be able to help Royal. For treatment, decline vital forces, there were two ways. One, dew from the tree of life, but there were no such trees, there are no more left. Second way to find a person with a pedigree that has unlimited vital by force, but was almost impossible. Almost how search a needle in space. After some time, Alice arrived at the house. Sorofiev immediately began to look for Charlotte, trying to find out where they could have disappeared to insidious kidnappers, her brother. Charlotte just asked not to be dramatic. Situation, recalling that where more vile there were those who tried rip-off engagement lovers intentionally. Alice, with a light anxiety, I asked, what if the one Charlotte could steal from estates suddenly will become her property? Charlotte coldly reminded that opinion non-blood reception sisters, nobody cares. And besides, how whatever it was, she, all more engaged to him. Charlotte didn't deny it. Deep connection between Alice and her fiancé, but felt too bad Royal didn't notice feelings Alice, counting her to relatives a person. Alice didn't deny it their own feelings for Royal, and calmly noted that some things like codependency develop only with time. While everyone thought that Alice inactive, Royal turned out to be so close to her that he is no longer capable was her reject or leave, even if you wanted. Charlotte admitted that they caught her by surprise, but now she won't allow it. Them continue in the same spirit until they are not capable of making a real threat. At that moment, Princess Nora appeared and asked curiously about her participation in what is happening. Charlotte only noted that she did not expect to see Nora here, and the princess straightaway asked where Royal and what state is it in, suspecting injuries. However, Charlotte did not want to reveal details what happened and the state. The Royal remained her secret. She decided mention only side effects after spells, and the princess thought that speech, it's about the consequences, forces Grandara. Nora asked directly, so, while he was weakened, Charlotte decided kidnap him and bring him here? Charlotte only emphasized that Royal wanted it himself, see where she lives, and again noted that they engaged. The princess affirmed that he is, and will be hers, leaving Charlotte with this fact. To the boy who was in another room, a chill ran down my spine from what was happening conversation. The dispute continued until other people and nobles, the persons in the room, did not pay attention to him. Because centenarian contract connects her with Royal, Charlotte hoped that Mr. Carter and her father will support their actions. Meanwhile, Royal found himself in a conscious state in a dream, where walked on water and gradually began to drown, as if the dream itself was deciding toss trial. He turned and saw huge an eye remarkably similar to his own, as if someone was watching his every move. The boy woke up in a cold sweat, as if only what emerged from a nightmare that left a sticky mark on the soul. Charlotte winced. With him, but immediately hugged him, trying calm down, as if its warmth is capable drive away all the evil in the world. Royal admitted to himself that from the moment swallowed Creator Glacier, felt permanent presence, like a pair of eyes followed him. Charlotte understood. This is a sign from God. Since ancient times, they knew that there is nothing scarier than attract attention higher and be found only a puppet in his hands. Exactly. That's why people always acted carefully, fearfully to anger gods. But Royal went further. He absorbed the power of one of their envoys. Charlotte felt guilty. If it weren't for her solution, Isabella would have died, and Vincent would have lived his whole life dedicated just to take revenge for her. Probably, it is Vincent killed the Dark Lord, and the Convocation Saints and the rest 6 disasters trembled before his wrath until it disappeared mysteriously. Vincent committed mistake. Royal swore that the same one will not allow it. To him need to recover. And tomorrow he was going to meet Alice. In this time, in Government Roses, Nora collected Charlotte and many courtiers' lawyers, so that investigate kidnapping case Lord's estates. The first to speak was the stern man with a heavy voice, claiming that there is grounds suspect Charlotte of violation 4th point security law. In response with sides, Charlotte was given the explanation that everything is just misunderstanding. Born misunderstanding between houses. Opponents insisted. Marriage contract with Charlotte Sorofia has lost her strength, and this an indisputable fact. Charlotte slammed her palms on the table, declaring that the treaty was 100 years old and had huge historical value. Nora clarified. She was misunderstood. She never denied the contract itself between Ascourts and Sorophis, denied only Charlotte herself. Disturbance swept over Charlotte. How can deny her right? And on what basis? Princess explained that the last one, the generation that had the right to claim this union, was previous, and Charlotte no longer got there. Opposition, Charlotte objected. Agreement imprisoned on the territory, roses therefore spread only for aristocratic marriages, theocracies. But the supporters' boroughs presented a certificate of compliance additions to the laws of the theocracy, and this put everything under doubt. Judicial meeting, it dragged on endlessly. There was no end in sight. It was at this moment that Charlotte came up her maid. She whispered in my ear that Alice treats gentlemen royala in an unusual way, through the transfer of bodily liquids. When Alice I saw my brother in a wheelchair chair, she couldn't stand it. Tears splashed ourselves by yourself. Royal asked her not to cry, assuring that this only exhaustion vital forces. Alice objected that maybe they're restore, and begged the old man to let her try. Old man Andrew, I was surprised. They managed to find a person with a pedigree vital forces. He asked if he could. Lee Alice to embody this force, and it immediately began to create magical patterns by hand. On her a bird appeared in the palm of your hand, softly clapping wings, as if a sign of awakening. Treatment, as the old man explained, that the easiest way to do it is through the contact method. Exchange bodily liquids. The point was simple. They will do saliva, blood, tears, and so on, but while the force is embodied, it's useless. Suddenly, the bird in her hands seemed to have lost the will to live and withered away. Royal stated her death and asked question. Now, methods will be work? Andrew. I thought about it. Maybe whether to self-embodiment the forces perished so easily. Alice sent out Andrew from rooms to begin treatment, but he managed warn. If you don't calculate the measure, they may be side effects. Royal wanted to know what exactly, but the door had already closed behind the old man. Alice stood in front of her brother, no longer in her former state. Clothes, but in light nightgown. Royal didn't want that she let herself bleed, and suggested collect some tears into a glass. She drank the glass of wine in one gulp, and suddenly she pressed herself against her brother, passing the drink through a kiss. Half of the wine spilled over his beard. Royal flared up with anger, pushed away. I didn't even understand what was wrong with her today. Alice only smiled and said that her saliva will enough. She came closer again. Manipulative reminded. Is it really better for my brother? See her in tears, then be content this way? Alice added that he underestimates your own condition. Really feeling shame more important than his health? She didn't give it to him reply again, biting into his lips. In Royal's chest, the heat flared up as if inside flared up flame. His head spun, and he realized side effect made its presence known. Alice. I remembered Andrew's words. Excess energy will cause strong excitement and desire. She pressed herself against her brother, wrapped her arms around him, and filled him with life. Energy. Royal tried push away her, but she held him tightly and asked if she wanted she stayed with him forever. He blushed and admitted that once. Side effect flared up all stronger. Like endure such trial? The thought tormented him. If he gave in, Alice. Maybe hate him. He didn't want to become an animal. But Alice whispered, if there is a brother, then she, agree. Chains, what held back situation, finally tore apart. As if someone pressed trigger and history sharp, she let go of the brakes, gaining speed revolutions. At the same moment, into the room, Charlotte burst in, followed by Nora, both with faces full determination and fury. The princess threw her chains towards Alice, intending to tie up her, and screamed, how could she even decide seduce the royal was right behind her? But Alice, as if she went deaf. Her sight was chained to his brother, and she reached out to him, causing Charlotte to activate a golden soul, so that stand up for one's defense. Hate her open at royal. They didn't dare, but they could force Alice feel torment throughout their completeness. This time Nora managed to wrap herself around her chains and hold. But Alice flared up his by force, tore apart shackles and threw them down with a scream challenge, accusing therein that they dared stand up between her and her brother at the moment when they finally found each other. The girls are terrified, understood. Alice strengthened spells the most, his vital by force. was her attribute. And she had, I don't care about the consequences. Nora drew her blade, accusing Alice in that she crossed all boundaries. Besides, she shouldn't have forget that she only reception daughter of the House of Ascart. Charlotte, however, focused on shame. How can a range similar in her estate? Is it really Alice's? There is nothing left at all shame. No, of reason. Nora broke down, screaming that Alice's status was an empty mask. She met first, and these two appeared later, as if eyesore. Alice turned her attention to Nora, accusing her in that she only is covering up ranked offenders, but, in fact, business-movable, dirty desires. Charlotte noticed that expression faces the princesses became too much suspicious, as if she was hiding something. But Nora is just calmly clarified, yes, does Alice have more what to add? Today, she has last opportunity. Suddenly, thundered explosion. The wall of the estate collapsed. Stones flew to different places, sides. Andrew and the rest of you who was in court could not understand what at all is happening. The battle is fast broke out of the house and moved onto the street. Nora attacked skill, glowing tombstones. Sharp, shining blades pierced air. Alice raised stone pillars, creating barriers and reflecting the blow, protecting himself from the onslaught of the princess. Charlotte did not lag behind and released from revolver's volleys precious stones, turning street in the field of shining flashes. Alice covered herself with a shield, and all attacks only ricocheted, raising clubs smoke. Soon, she rose into the air and cried out curse, brought down on rivals' huge shining ball. Spell damage was colossal. Girls understood that they won't have time to escape. They were advancing. Their end. But at that moment appeared Royal. Using the power of grandeur, he managed to beat off magic projectile. The fireball flew into the distance, and Royal himself ordered Alice immediately descend to the ground. It has begun real educational analysis. He asked, really, they seriously think that their position allows do anything you like? Transcendence, high level, you probably already felt its surge of power. Coming soon, Carter and the others will show up. How they were going to explain all this? But, having regretted them, Royal said that to him remains just ask Grander, take all the blame on yourself. He suddenly threw up. Blood. So, the method of treatment it works, just with a delay. However, tempo were murderous. They could have killed him, but at least it would have taught him a lesson. Learned. The girls bent over him, asking forgiveness and promising, don't do that again. Later, lying in the bath, Royal asked Grandera, not watching, is there some powerful force behind it? Creature. Moreover, isn't she the mother goddess herself? The skeleton admitted that the power he absorbed was indeed belonged to the monster beyond reasonable and possible. This was the messenger of the mother goddess. While he was getting ready, only save your own presence. If will be needed protection, they ourselves will turn to him. But he will try to persuade the goddess of the earth and attract allies to increase military power. However, Royal understood that strengthen your own strength is more important all. He wanted to become stronger. How can faster? While browsing through the system store, he acquired protective bell to get, though would be one additional insurance. Weakness and frostbite left, stayed only trace of immortality. Ahead was meeting with Nora. They sat at the table discussing the city, its prosperity and noisy vanity. But Royal interrupted conversation and asked what her worries. Nora was tormented by one question. Happy whether he is with her. All this time she as if she was forcing him to be near. And she was frightened by the thought that this could have put him off. Royal noticed that Princess suddenly became soft and vulnerable. I hoped it wasn't Charlotte. In the morning, his father and Uncle Bruce found him Royal, wrapped in bags with ice. He explained that overdid it with life by force, restoration it dragged on, and I couldn't hold on to the mana, which is why happened explosion. Bruce believed and noted that this annoying chance. Good also, what no one was hurt. But Carter realized the truth. Something had happened. Fight between girls for his son. Charlotte, meanwhile, was worried about the prenuptial agreement. If Carter didn't recognize it, she would maybe lose the groom. She decided act on her own and openly declared to her father Royal what loves his son and asks not to interfere their feelings. This was her, the only thing wish. Father looked at his daughter and was amazed. Really? All for one man? Carter knew that his son was next to him. Gathered powerful girls, but if a person like Charlotte decided to take such a step, that said a lot. So he decided to indicate one's position. In there, he won't be in a relationship, no obstacle, no blessing. Astonishment. Charlotte was impossible to describe in words. She expected anything but that answer. Young mister, I was perplexed. Could Nora really thinks that holds him by force? It seems that after battle I wound myself up too much. Only one thought going through his head. How can so doubt if it was clear from the very beginning what human? He wondered. Could it be? This all still the same Princess Nora? If is she so easily broken by other people's opinions? But the girl, I still found the strength in myself, acknowledged that he was right, and agreed that better to go back to what they had earlier. To confirm this, is she dipped finger in sweet sauce, and, like playfully, she pointed it towards the guy. The one with the easy one with a grin gave in her whims and licked, but only on condition that this will the only time. Nora was happy. For her, this became a signal. It's time to demand reward. And she brought it down on him flow kisses. Later, sitting on the bed and holding his head, Royal's plans was to restore Nora's self, confidence, not to excite her old habits. Luckily, her spell purification, it worked. And the last one's negative effects finally disappeared. Carter congratulated son. Now, that stood on 4th true level. Was a step that opened the way to unprecedented talents. The time has come. Royal entered the academy, where many were waiting for him tests and more girls. Just before Carter started talking about marriage before leaving, he had gone too far earlier, talking about the multitude wives, and now there were no other girls. Royal agreed and stated that we'll follow example father, and in the future we'll choose just one woman. But Carter only grinned and even hit him on the head, explaining that son doesn't understand anything. Speech was walking, that's not what it's about at all. The academy is place temptations. There will be the most different girls, and many will try get his attention. Having heard this, Royal couldn't resist asking, had he encountered Lai father with similar when studied together with mother? Carter admitted that in his time really was the center of attention. Moreover, one day he and his mother Royala, because of this, happened crisis. Guilt. The whole thing turned out to be a junior who came for advice. Carter tried her console, and his wife could not contain jealousy. Similar girls often put themselves down, comparing themselves to others and calling themselves non-entities. And this put young Carter in a very ticklish position. To the question, son, how to react correctly, Carter explained, you need to praise, emphasize her sincerity, and courage admit weaknesses. From this moment has begun the real lesson, is art conquer women's hearts. But so valuable talk, suddenly Charlotte interrupted. She told Carter that wants share with royal care for the future estate's Askertov. Carter only chuckled. The future belongs to the young, and he wasn't going to interfere. But still reminded that royal costs say goodbye to the Princess Nora. Despite his neutral words, things were going well, the impression that Carter's heart was bowed exactly towards the princess. Charlotte has no trump cards left. All that she could invest in the estate and prove her loyalty affairs. She suggested Royal to do important questions until she sorts out the situation herself around Forrest's Karen and will prepare report for him personally. Young Mister got into the carriage, but barely the door slammed shut, as he was grabbed by the collar and pulled inside. Nora loomed over him. It had come time another one parting, and she asked defiantly, will whether he misses. Young man slightly blushed, and admitted that total only a little, because Nora is always busy anyway, and their meetings rare. But for her, even such the confession turned out to be painful. Each parting tore apart her from the inside. He's just inflated cheeks, and mentally regretted that once encouraged her, having given too much many confidence. Meanwhile, it became clear. The followers, goddesses, the paters, turned out to be mercenaries Sorofiev. To achieve forests, Karen, you'll have to. Cross borders, straight away, 2 countries. The route ran through the land's roses. And if about it finds out Ossetian Empire, scandal is inevitable. That's why Royal decided subjugate these mercenaries for themselves, for their own sake security. In the armory, Cynthia, leader mercenaries, was outraged. The thought that their want to subjugate seemed like a humiliation to her, but not all of them were against. There were stories when theocracy used the services of mercenaries and did not pay them. Subordination could be profitable. Cynthia, I was going to anyway negotiate in person and try refuse. Her subjects protested. For the leader, this was too much risky. Then an idea came up, send a small one with her group, because it was too early to go to the aristocrats alone recklessness. But Cynthia stood her ground. She was, I'm sure, that neither Rose nor the Ascarts will not dare her humiliate. Also, to be on the safe side, she suggested divide people into pairs. At the meeting in the Askartov house, she refused outright. How? Hired heretical group. They could not be based in the theocracy. But young Mr. assured that time are changing, and attitudes towards heretics have already begun soften. Moreover, he was ready personally guarantee changes. Royal. I understood that words couldn't prove this. It was necessary was show something more. He stood up and demanded that mercenaries bowed before him. This caused shock. They asked again, "Are you sure? Did you hear correctly?" But there was an order repeated, without shadow doubts. Cynthia realized that resistance pointless. Home Askartov was too much powerful, and so she bowed. At that very moment, Royal directed mana into the staff, and from him flared up blue light. Cynthia recognized him the purest attribute of steadfastness. Even her old wounds started to tighten. She, I understood. In front of her stands the person who capable change attitude, theocracies to heretics. Together with the subjects, Cynthia swore an oath of allegiance to the House of Ascart. The detachment accompanying the young gentleman was defeated camp. Everyone decided stop for the night, and soon around bonfires reigned sleepy peace. While he was sleeping in his carriage, inside Alice crept in unnoticed. She put it on him, lungs charms, to make sleep become deeper, and no one could disturb him. Then settled down next to him, pressed herself against him, and began to shower him with kisses. Bye. The guy's breathing became short, and he didn't move in his sleep. She wanted to join her brother at the Ascart mansion, but now was too early. That's why she decided, let it be this at night, all will remain as it is. There is. In the morning, young gentleman with a lung bewilderment, I asked Cynthia, everything Lee was calmly at night, because he was strange feeling like something happened. On to the next one, all the guards pretended at night sleeping. And that's exactly it. Then from carriages reached strange, suspicious sounds. The cavalry surrounded the cart and ordered whoever had gotten inside to leave immediately. Go out. When doors opened wide, in the eyes, an unexpected picture appeared before them. An unfamiliar figure was lying on top of royal young woman. Warriors straightaway decided that this witch, and they reached out, pull out her by force. But Roel stopped them, stating that they got it all wrong. The girl turned out to be his junior sister. Cynthia, however, noticed that externally, they are not similar at all. Then he explained that the sister was adopted and too spoiled, so she decided make fun of everyone. Warriors relieved exhaled. The main thing is that it's not an attack. Besides, they admitted that Alice with Saint's son looks like together, quite nice. At that moment appeared elder villages with muscular satellite. He loudly announced that this robbery, and demanded all their wine. But looking into the carriage, the elder froze. His face, the young man seemed to him to the point of pain familiar. Total some hours ago, the cultists were chasing them away through the Karen forest. No one could have imagined that exactly. Here they stumble upon the holy sun. They bowed before the ancient tree, which was considered a great master forests, and wished peace to him. And suddenly from depths, forests, a voice was heard. Master demanded help in their daring robbery. Werewolves, together with the owner forests, exchanged wine for shelter. But in itself, such robbery seemed humiliating. Elder approached Roel and, bowing down, said that they finally found the one they were looking for. 2 hours later, those gathered around the fire told the whole truth. They turned out to be followers Grandera. The next day, Roel personally headed towards the owner forests and brought several as a gift barrels of wine. However, werewolves straightaway perceived him as an outsider. From ambushes started, go out armed warriors ready to attack. All allowed Cade, stopping them. He said that before them was a descendant of the House of Ascart, and therefore he could not be an enemy. Master Forests took the barrel of wine in his hands and allowed the guy to explain why he came. Roel told history assemblies and ancestors Kaida, and then remembered fall Austin empires. Ascart told small background in the letter assembly, which was the ancestor of Cade, and how the empire fell Austin. After he asked this question, if there is a savior, then why are his believers are being pursued House Ard? Who? They? What are these followers like? It turned out that it existed more long before birth Kaida, and the main one-target assemblies always was to prevent him from waking up. Master Forests remembered that one day met strange traveler by name Roy Ascart. That one came to him, guided by records, lords. Roy asked him oak pendant, and soon went to the country scientists. On the pendant, he left something like messages. He was capable, save any signs on your telly, and had big duration life. Therefore, members' assemblies recorded important information on it. The main hero this world was considered Paul Ackerman. Probably Roy visited one from historical excerpts, and after left here, your own message. Roel asked the forest spirit about his plans. He replied that costs to him go beyond forests, and its presence will become too much noticeable. Royal said that if trust between them there is, then it is possible move to his fiefdom. Besides, it is offer. It also concerned other demonic ones, creatures. Cade started talk about risks, dangers, and possible consequences, but Roel interrupted him without wanting to listen pessimistic arguments. The boy put forward, "Where more tempting argument? 5 barrels of wine daily. How can you resist such an offer?" Forrest, the owner, couldn't. Coming soon, upon request Roella, he passed on to him the symbol of the assembly. Pendant, with a small acorn, found itself in the hands of a young man. He looked at it as if it were a key to new doors, and was ready to go to the country scientists. 3 years have passed. Academy St. Freya in the country scientists met new students. Roel straightaway found himself in the center of attention. The girls literally couldn't take their eyes off him, whispered and made guesses about his height origin. Royal finished reading the book, thoughtfully arranged pawns, lining up plans as exactly interfere the main character to meet with the one with whom we shouldn't have met. And here it is, finally the main character himself, Paul Ackerman, appeared in search of places where first-year students were registering. Roel first stretched out, they gave him a helping hand, were classmates. Paul introduced himself and admitted that his illegitimate son, Emperor Austin Empires. However, young mister was not surprised at all. For him, it didn't matter meanings. So what if he is illegitimate? Flashed through Paul's mind. Memories of the past humiliations, how he was called a coward, disinherited, laughed at behind his back. Roel calmly noticed that pedigree does not have meanings. The only important thing is that it helps to his classmates, and it is not his fault that he is illegitimate. So it was done the first step to changing the course of history. Where is Charlotte's carriage will not cross paths again, accidentally, with the main one hero. Because Paul lost the Book of Truth sign, he could not register. Therefore, asked Roella to that vouched for him, and he agreed. In the original stories exactly here, Paul met Lillian when she helped him. Now everything it was taking shape otherwise, the acquaintance should take place at another time. From this moment story finally turned away from the usual paths. Perhaps Paul's life at the academy will no longer be such heavy. He asked Roel about the ring bearers, those who possessed special ring and received unique tasks, and also advantages in recruiting followers. At that time, the academy had only 3 ring keepers, 1 for each course. The most strong influence had Lillian Ackerman, Paul's sister. Roel only hard side. Paul turned out to be illegitimate son Genus Ackerman, and in addition, more main hero. Problems won't stop you myself for a long time, wait. And he was not mistaken. Soon, the bullies appeared, who decided in front of everyone, humiliate newbie. The crowd is interested watched as sophomore attacked a freshman. Someone shouted that Paul was a bastard. One of impudent grabbed him by the tie and began to laugh mockingly, claiming that Academy Freya is a place for the worthy, not for people like him. Sophomore called him a mudblood and demanded get down on your knees and promise release in exchange for humiliation. Crowd picked up jeers, shouting at Paul to bow down and get lost. Paul had no other choice exit. How obey? But at this moment, Roel unnoticed he held out his staff, not allowing him to kneel down. The bully immediately turned to Roel, saying that it would be better for him not to interfere in the affairs. Imperial families. According to the canon, it is here should Nora was to appear and intervene. But events went otherwise. Changing history, Roel himself took on the role of savior. He looked at her with disdain. Noted that these smug guys, shame Empire's Austin, after all, strong here oppress the weak, are called this tradition. One of bully rushed at Roel with an attack, but he easily dodged. He wasn't going to fight. Instead of this, he hit the ground with his staff and summoned Giant Snake. Snake rushed forward and, having lightly bitten one of offenders, forced the rest recoil. And it was at this moment that Roel suddenly felt a resonance of kinship. He felt its strange attraction, like blood responded to the call, and, turning around, noticed silhouette girls standing towards him back. In her, a piece of paper flashed in his hand, which at the same moment fell at his feet. Inside was cold warning. Take care of Paul. Otherwise you will encounter her family. Really? This Lillian ? In Eyes Chronicler. There was a younger brother complex. But now next to him stood Royal, and her attention has clearly shifted. The thought of getting closer to her did not appeal to him. He was used to it. To be alone. A wolf. What is coming, his dear? With these. In his thoughts, he gave a short order to the snake. The monster is unquestioning obeyed, and two brothers, like broken toys, fell out from his mouth already unconscious. In another situations their fate was predetermined, but the current minister security, Lillian, and to quarrel with her now was recklessness. Paul, barely having caught his breath, he cast a full glance at his savior gratitude. On the scale of his affection, flared up set new lights, but that one only waved with a hand, as if brushing aside the trifle. He was disgusted by the very idea, when strong crushes the weak. And then in the air rang out a ringing voice. Turning around, he saw Nora. She raised her fist and reproachfully declared that he hadn't even bothered her visit after arrival, and then dubbed him untalented subjects. However, her anger turned out to be softer than seemed. For her impressive act decided reward him with a kiss. But first, how lips touched goals. From crowds, Charlotte jumped out. She grabbed Royal's hand tightly and quickly took away. In her voice, Nora needed to keep her composure. The academy was no place for such a person. Candid scenes with her fiancé. Princess only, she chuckled. She reminded that first meeting wife Royala it can't be. Paul, who became witness total, I didn't hide this delight. Before him was the person to whom sympathized straight away. 2, Princess and Daughter, chapters Roses. And just at that moment, the director of the academy himself, Antonio, came out to the students. His speech was deep and dark at the same time. First-year students are not finished yet. Understood her meaning, but heaviness words was felt each cell. The director spoke up, Speaker-Student Council, Lillian Ackerman. She greeted newcomers with warmth and strength in their voice. But in her speech, she again felt strange response. Resonance of kinship. Her sight fell on Paul. Could it be? From all present are connected with it, only they? And yet there was one next to him, Royal, a member of the House of Ascart, next to Ackerman? This required explanations. The relationship turned out to be tricky knot. It is not always associated with blood. Even Royal, being the son his own father, inherited not his kinship, but what came from Roy. Well, it can't be that way. Lillian inherited Carter's kinship, but the message left by the ancestor warned, stay away from her. Antonio, meanwhile, asked first years, raise your hands. Everyone got its special magical tool. He stressed that the subject is extremely important for the entrance ceremony, and tomorrow it will have to be returned, so take care of him need to as a treasure. Every from these little animals turned out to be a spirit guide, created to make the students' way into the dungeon easier coming at night. There was a ritual, it's over. And the moment has come. Night Demons was announced open. In an instant, all the first years were transported to the misty forest, full of dangers and traps. The spirits accompanied owners, and their light was shining brighter with each the student's achievement. First, the enemies turned out to be a pack demonic wolves, 6th level origin. After victories over them, Royal only stronger squeezed the staff. Feeling suggested, ahead is waiting, where more. Next came the Triants, the warrior trees. 4th level, attacking flying boards. Taking the power of the grander, he crushed them, turning them into chips. Meanwhile, in the observation room, Lillian, I watched his fight. Her heart, it hit me. Magic creations, the same as hers. Perhaps it is. That's why Emperor Lucas forbade her to have any contact with the royal. Her Highness Princess Nora and Daughter Chapters Roses are favorites to win the ring-bearer title of this year's, and it seems like royal same. There is not bad chances. Next, rival Grandera. The ring-bearer turned out to be Roderick Auspin, clad in armor, as if the steel itself had decided accept human appearance. The enemy was fully focused on attacks, like was ideal target for Power Grandera. Royal allowed himself luxury sit down and catch your breath. And while he was resting, the other two had already come together in a fierce duel. Roderick struck, and powerfully Wave took a ride forward, breaking air. But Grander disappeared as if dissolved. It was worth it. Ray's look up, and there it was, shining royal, exuding dazzling light. And behind him, the only thing that sparkled was Wing. Concentrating all his strength in his hands, he summoned power grandeur and brought down her on the ring bearer. The victory went to him. Defeated enemy dropped out ring roses, keeping strange gleam secrets. But deep down, forests became apparent new silhouette. The ring was already in the guy's possession. However, source threats was very close, and he was clearly superior Roderick. Advantages of this event was that everything after awakening disappeared. But reliably, Lee, this when does the guy have a ring? If not, then it's a death sentence. And it was at this moment that the goddess Peitra appeared. Warning was simple. New silhouette possessed the attribute of a crown. In front of the young man stood Roy Ascart, his ancient ancestor. Ai's ancestor caught fire, dazzling light. The goddess desperately ordered the royal did not meet his gaze, but it was too late. The next second, the Grander and the goddess herself crumbled into tiny pieces. Young man felt himself in the bottomless ocean, which slowly but surely pulled him to the very bottom. Over the past didn't exist for 1,000 years, not a single heir Askartov, who managed to live longer 30 years later awakening. And all the efforts he made to survive were just in vain. Opened up a new path for him, to the inevitable deaths. Royal bitterly thought about that, even in order to, a little to rest. Him, as if need to, was ask someone's permission. Roy raised his hand to strike, but something was in the way her movement, as if the space itself did not allow to reach Boy. Then Royal released the power of ice, and the ancestor's hand froze in a thick ice lump. Charlotte, Nora, and perhaps Paul flashed through his mind. Probably already passed their tests, but if he fails, he will lose face in front of everyone. The fight continued, blows shook air, and strength both turned out to be almost our equal. Then Roy summoned an angel. Unlike the descendants Zekladov, who inherited angelic blood, this was real heavenly, a warrior who served the goddess Sia. Fight between Angel and Grander turned the battlefield into a hellish storm. Explosive waves scattered over tens of meters. Battle soon rose into the sky. Those who was in the forest saw only as they flared up and went out above them huge fire and ice spheres. Grander warned that there might not be enough strength. Royal only asked to strengthen immortality and took it upon himself all the rest. The next step he took was to call his own giant pet that rushed into the attack without the slightest hesitation fluctuations. Roy also was trump card, is real a beast of divine rank, not an illusion, but flesh and blood. After their furious battles, it's time turn owners. Roy called Flame, demonstrating the power of 3 ancient deities. Royal answered instantly. His icy the power stood against red-hot fire. They exchanged blows, and the boy only, all louder, encouraged the opponent to continue. But in the end, exactly, Roy admitted the senselessness of the fight. Their forces are equal, and the winner will never be determined. Battle stopped. In my head, young men swarmed questions. What does here is his ancestor? Why attacked? And didn't he die a long time ago? And the answer turned out to be simple. That really died. Before him was just an image woven from residual memory. This fight turned out to be total only test. And the boy did not disappoint. He turned out to be worthy heir Askartov. Roy admitted that his will was preserved for centuries, just for the sake of one important assignment. He asked if there was lie now at the academy young woman from genus Ackermanov. Rather, total speech was talking about Lillian. Royal confirmed that such there is, and heard an assignment that made his head spin. His ancestor ordered do her the mother of his child. Young Mister was stunned so much so that almost howled. But Roy asked, save calmness. What no matter what method was, he should was to start, though I would have one child with blood Ackermanov. Even if we'll have to resort to kidnapping. Trust Ackermans, it is impossible, but it does not mean at all that their offspring should be refused. Was there some misunderstanding? If you don't trust her, Royal won't be able to get married. And without marriage, how will appear child? By force or a miracle? Roy previously left warning entry stay away from this families, and now declares something strange. Does he really want to? Substitute Royal? He replied, denial, adding that found in the documents of ancestors, second era's information about what pedigrees twin eagles will open gates, and the fat will return to the world. How, whatever it was, he asked Royala, remember? For the revival of the House of Ascart, necessary blood Akermanov, the key to the future families. Then, the conversation moved to the ring on his hand. The first ring roses that belonged to Academician, preserving strength and memory past. Thanks to unique nature rings, consciousness Roy was preserved, and he could communicate with the ancestor directly, as if time ceased to exist. By the third year of study, Royal failed to find a trace Academician, but he was, I'm sure, this one human survived the second era, and owns by many secrets. The only clue was the ring on the young gentleman's hand. It kept the keys to knowledge and traces past. When time Roy was coming to an end, there was no needs to grieve. The past was his, and the future now belonged Royal. Finally, Roy said that the guy was too been here for a long time. Time to take their own glory, passing on feeling responsibility and power. At this moment, Royal arose strange a feeling as if he had forgotten something important, elusive from memory. Of course, he forgot about the useless spirit, aimlessly rushing about back and forth, which barely Lee could help get out from, of this places. Taking a small one out of his pocket thing, he thought, did Chris really foresee similar, and gave this item in advance, as if preparing for the future? Some hours ago, he was sitting in the budget canteen. Academies are the only ones a place where Nora and Charlotte definitely won't go. He was thinking about how to find the academician using the acorn pendant. From Assembly's Twilight Wise Men, and get on the trail of knowledge. How, as soon as he took out the pendant, a girl appeared next to him. Chris Wilde, a local special needs teacher, attentioned to him. She found out that Royal relative, the person with whom once upon a time there was close. So I came to talk, to check connection with the past. Royal, I remembered the words of the keeper of the forests that arrived. The girl warned about the impending dangers. Everything became clearer. She looked at him, mentally asking, really, that's it? The child for whom once tore apart connections? But then Chris clarified, understood whether he is the one you are talking about, and received a nod in response, confirming understanding and willingness to cooperate. She asked again, said Lee this man about her? And Royal nodded, confirming what was heard and previous guesses. Joyfully standing up, Chris asked, where is he in the patrimony Askartov? And you can write a letter to support connection. Drunkard Tryan had recently moved into the estate, and Chris clearly knew about it. Royal allowed right without interfering with personal life. Chris thanked him and handed over the item, with the help of which he will be able to get out from dungeons if we'll get into danger. She herself write a letter, and Royal didn't understand what she is so happy. The opportunity Triana was so significant. The students gathered at the entrance to the misty forest, looking at Charlotte, a contender for the Red Ring Roses, admiring her presence. From forests came out the next contender is for Gold Ring, majestic Nora, attracting attention all gathered. A pulsation was noticed in the forest, and a loudspeaker academies announced the beginning historical events, creating an atmosphere of celebration. 3 calcinos in 1 generation, a rarity, and everyone welcomed it. Birth of the ring-bearer Blue Roses, an event of great significance. Young Lord of the House of Ascart became this keeper, and around him the disciples gathered, offering help and expressing respect. Later, Chris took out a week royale on the Trading Street Academy, and they headed to the bar, continuing their research and observations. Royal didn't understand why he was there, until Chris pointed her finger at the wall behind him, attracting attention to detail. There was a hanging on the wall broken sword, under which his father's last name and first name were indicated, which had special significance for Traditions Academies. Master Carter often took the sword with him, and this detail gave an understanding of why Chris chose exactly this place to meet him. Royal was weird, hear his father they call Master, but he began to understand that the reason for her interest deeper than it seemed. Gradually he realized. She treats him so well because wants to become his stepmother, and he dreams of becoming her student. A real shock. However, he allowed Chris to support connection with father, so that he did not remain alone for the rest of his life, agreeing to her intervention. For his sake, she involved personal connections to negotiate private classes that was exceptional support at the academy. There are no bonuses for help in the Academy Junior, but Senior agreed helping is an incredible gesture of kindness and trust. He was surprised appearance Lillian Ackerman in an audience he didn't expect see here, creating new intrigue and tension. Lillian thought that this on purpose, but the expression on his face said otherwise, leaving Royale a mystery and a feeling déjà vu. Because she agreed help, Royal decided to behave correctly, having greeted her so that save business atmosphere. She replied that she did not intend to establish relations, and their origin does not allow build close connections, emphasizing distance. Now Royal was, I'm sure. This is the little brother syndrome, and everyone else is just trash in her eyes. Secondary personalities. After he didn't find out from the research, he can lie the ring will bring him to the academician. Wondering question. Needed Lee special conditions for this. Without tormenting myself after thinking, he decided better to sleep. After all, morning, evenings wiser. And questions will decide clearer with the new during the day. From the ring came out blue energy, enveloping the boy. After why did he wake up from a strong cold, feeling magical power around? He stood on the balcony of the estate, and was, I am sure. This is clearly not a dream, but a reality shrouded in magic and power rings. Having decided activate the crown, he realized that nothing works. World of Gods closed, and forces Grandera and Peitra not available. In such situations, it couldn't be reality. Then someone imposed spell, and now he was trapped stranger magic. Because around it was quiet, Royal decided inspect the room, having sorted through all the shelves and cabinets. But I didn't find anything valuable. Looking at his watch, he realized that fell asleep. And froze watch, they hinted that he was alone here, and no one was bothering him. Thinking about the reason his own appearance is in this place, Royal went out onto the balcony and noticed light in the window of one of the buildings. Moving logically, he did conclusion. There must be someone there, and he headed towards the glowing one window, quickening his pace. Looking into the door, he saw an old man with a staff crowned with lamp, from which came from magical shine and spells. Glowing symbols surrounded Royal, and his head began to split with pain, as if brain tried accept too much many information. Suddenly, a monster appeared in front of him, muttering something, and from its mouth proceeded just as luminous symbols, pulsating and sparkling. Royal, I was shocked, but I got it together forces and attacked Glacier, instantly freezing the monster, which was not expecting it such determination. A group of people in armor appeared, and the one who was without a helmet ordered to seize Royal, directing the rest to him. In the morning he sat, wondering why ring roses brought him there, and what it is he who should was to commit in this nightmare place. Charlotte, sitting in his arms, was slightly worried, not understanding what happened, and watched his tense face. He explained that it's just a nightmare, adding that in class it was not easy, and in the evening expected and more lessons. Charlotte noted that nightmares, like fortune-telling with astrology, are in the realm her knowledge and skills, and can help. She suggested dispel fears with spells aimed at calming down consciousness and removal voltage after nightmare. Having applied charms, she kissed him, calling it a kiss blessings, and the effect was noticeable. Nightmares could no longer disturb his sleep. Time for classes with Lillian, it came up, and Royal, I watched what was happening, thinking about anything, just if not about the upcoming lectures. The teacher asked to apply available knowledge in practice, showing that she is ready to get down to business seriously. The beauty of the teacher was no guarantee instant improvement skills, but her strict approach forced concentrate on magic. She looked at his hand and noted that he had killed people. That shocked Royal and made him think about her words. Lillian explained that his strong, murderous intention interferes with precise control of magic, being reason failures in practice. This meant that fine control of mana unavailable. And these words still Royal was more shocked when he realized borders their own abilities. Although he couldn't control mana ideally, his breakthrough power remained exceptional, distinguishing him from other students. He knew how support stable, powerful recharge, mana long-term time that was unique ability and rare advantage. Royal asked, does not mean Lee this is what he is all about, still won't be able to pass exam ring bearer. Worried about the future estates. Guardians' rings saved their positions, but their privileges could be cancelled if the exam results are unsatisfactory. The thought of losing the Azure estate was painful, but Lillian noted that there is a chance to pass exams still remains, inspiring hope. The Royal was overjoyed to realize that his estate will remain with him, and the feeling security has restored confidence. He has to study more complex magic, because mana control is simplified version compression spells, no complicated ones technician. For royal compression spells, maybe it would be easier, and Lillian encouraged him, adding confidence to his own forces. If he can't to control mana directly, you will have to compress it to the limit, using all the strength and skills that there is. Because he doesn't have these now skills, Lillian ordered to add additional ones lessons to develop ability gradually. Only late at night he returned to the estate, feeling that there was nothing worse than additional classes on top of existing ones' loads. Having opened door, Royal was shocked. Paul sat at the table eating his food and crying, causing feeling guilt and anxiety. Butler explained that Paul fell into hunger, fainting at the door of the estate, and friends decided to feed him, trusting Royal. Initially robbed and was somewhat "I haven't eaten for days," which has made them worse mutual feelings and deepened relationship with Charlotte. At first Royal wanted to prevent this, but Paul himself came to him, and the intervention Royala only strengthened their connection. Paul asked if it was possible. Lee joined him by showing trust and desire be there despite difficulties and trials. Young Mr. was surprised and asked why not to Lillian, because her attention and little brother syndrome could have become a danger for Paul. Paul replied that he would talk to Lillian himself, but even with her with consent, he will probably continue to deliver to Royal small troubles. Royal clarified what kind of troubles is coming speech, understanding that being the ring bearer is not only an honor, but also a great responsibility. I'm sure that small difficulties will not make him give up yet one, a reliable pawn for his own goals. In the eyes, he was not a chronicler calcite, but founded the Query Club, attracting many associates and forming a team. Deepening relationship with Paul, he provided himself with a place on the team. The main thing, current face of the Club of Requests, creating strategic advantage. Before bed, Royal thought about yesterday in a dream. These people reminded me of the cultists. Their goals and abilities influence reality. In the morning, he asked Grandera and Petru, but they didn't notice anything unusual, leaving Royal rely exclusively on their own feelings. Having plopped down on the bed, I didn't understand that yet, it will be if he dies there, but the glacier did not leave negative effects after awakening. Closed eyes, he found himself in some kind of audience, finally making sure that events associated with the ring and its magical by force. Walking down the corridor, he attacked a man in armor, but Royal dodged without difficulty, showing agility and reaction higher average. Barely with one lung with one movement, he snatched the sword from the hands of his opponent and began to swing at them, preparing for the final blow. After killing the soldier and examining his body, Royal was struck. The enemy had 2 hearts, which explained his unusual durability. If he hadn't found out about it, he could to let down one's guard after a blow to the heart, opening opportunity for response attacks. Monsters looked like strange and bizarre, and Royal, it was a pity that he had at his disposal only 1 copy for study. He decided go outside to get several tin cans. But differences between the monsters, they made the task more difficult by creating set obstacles. These the creatures could not apply magic, but published a sharp squeak capable of disorient anyone who fell within its radius. Especially curious it was that after murders, each tin can ring started shine brighter, like approving actions. The next day, walking through the streets academies, Royal, I was thinking about what I would have to do during the fight with the monster's support attribute activity. To him came up some girls and offered to become his personal assistants, explaining that the ring bearer too many responsibilities for one. He soft refused, but the girls were not going to give up so easily, and continued insist on your own, creating lung voltage. At that moment, Nora appeared and instantly dispersed everyone, leaving Royal alone and restoring order around. Then she asked if it was time for his faction Blue Roses start recruiting. Otherwise, he risks not having time combine thises with classes. Royal thanked her for help, and Nora, grabbing his hand, led him to a cafe, offering joint lunch and a little bit rest. I watched this from nearby Lillian, and he approached her beloved brother, to discuss some important things, details and plans for the day. In both dreams, Royal was within the walls of the academy, so he decided go to the library and find architectural drawings to understand its layout. The voice suggested that necessary drawing is on the 12th shelf, and for access to the book required definite level tolerance. A figure appeared before him, bubble that presented itself like Margaret. Artificial intelligence serving the academy has already been around for several centuries. Margaret said she had given him access to voting rights on the council. Guardian's rings, opening opportunities not available to ordinary students. Her words continued. Access was promoted to 2nd level, giving more authorities than even the director, the maximum among students. Also at Royal was 3rd level access associated with the relic. But when asked about it, Margaret replied that he was not yet enough qualified. To the question of who sets access rights, she repeated the same answer, without giving specifics and reinforcing curiosity, Royal. On the 3rd, the question of who such academician, she gave the same phrase again, causing the guy to grow anger and irritation. This. The repeated phrase drove Royal to the limit, and he grabbed Margaret's hand, trying to understand the logic her behavior. He asked, Did he do something to gain access to the second level? And Margaret confirmed that yes, it was connected with his actions. The guy assumed that the reason could be ring black roses and his recent dream, connected all in one chain events. Since Margaret serves academies have been around for centuries, perhaps it once had contact with an academician, which gave her extensive knowledge. The academician could probably do it through her. Transmit messages, which means you just need to keep killing tin cans to find it with time. Although classes at the request of teacher Chris were free, Royal noticed that Lillian began to treat him colder, creating small distance. They practiced releasing mana, and finally at Royal, it turned out that it gave a feeling progress and self-confidence. After Ending's lesson, Lillian asked him why he had taken Paul in, hinting at the importance of his decisions and actions. Royal replied that reasons too. He hated Paul's attitude towards himself and highly appreciated his potential and abilities. He also noted that he did not choose who born and carries responsibility for your actions, not allowing oppress myself or others. If Princess will consider that Royal bad intentions, Paul immediately will get there under her control, which could put the young master in danger position. Lillian reacted in just one word, understood, and temporarily provided Royal magical communication and notification device. She warned that frequent meetings will call suspicion, and from this moment will inform about corrections classes through this device. Royal took the device and asked if it does not belong is the logo of the cafe that controls Sorcerer, providing it once a year on a random day. For use devices need to was to enter the cafe first and exclusively on that day, which added an element, surprises, and severity. Lillian explained that this can calculate by observing arrivals' enchantment accessories and then calculate her free time. Who could think that under cold facade of Lillian is hiding darling girl, but strict relationship interfered open up her femininity. Royal Houses asked Paul about recruiting for the Query Club, but he reported that total some person, which is probably due to underestimation myself. Royal knew that Paul was the chronicler's key character, and his comrades. It's not the quantity that matters, but the quality. So I waited patiently, development situations. He decided support Paul and make it clear that people who underestimate him may leave, because such the weak are not worth it their attention. After these words, Royal opened the door and let him in all newbies starting a new phase of the club's work and strengthening the team. Among them was Geralt, Sun Kingdom's Pandora, who entered with false documents in order to avoid meetings with your own bride. He will later become basic force for Paul, strengthening the club and creating reliable rear for the future operations. Geralt reported that although the club only opened, today an unusual letter has already arrived, attracting attention and provocative interest. Royal understood that Geralt is going to check his abilities and actions, how true Pandorian, faithful to their principles and ideals. He stretched out royal blood-red envelope that straight away attracted attention, his strange color and unusual smell. Royal surprised. Really first serious incident with which they collide? Be connected exactly with this, in blood-red writing? All started with the Disappearance Graduates Academy's Cheryl Lawrence. Parents contacted the academy and were horrified to learn that she disappeared a long time ago. Incident turned out to be associated with cultists, and the final was tragic. Paul and the rest found Cheryl's lost token, but much remained a mystery. Teaming up with Lillian, they found out that case concerned serial murders committed evil cultists for many years. The culprits turned out to be the teacher academies and several hiding cultists hiding in a wine cellar deep in the mountains. The cultists' goal is to use the bodies of the victims as experimental material. And from the rulers of the bloody envelope also, one person died. Parents, Cheryl, were killed, and the teacher and the cultists, having learned about Paul's investigation, in advance hid, avoiding punishment and justice. Tragedy must not be repeated. Those who are destined live, will live, and those who are destined die, will not escape his destinies. Royal decided accept the order and start investigation with search the person who sent the letter, not the person herself, Cheryl. In the game, Paul was unable to determine sender. All that was left was the letter itself. But this time, Royal planned act otherwise. By style of prayer, Can was determined that the letter was from Empire's Austin, what promised new hints and directions for investigation. Geralt sniffed the envelope and noted that it was homemade, originally white and with a rusty smell, which testified to skills transfigurations. By using henchmen, the envelope was full of funds repainted to attract attention, creating effect artificial accidents. However, this gave little information. Circle of suspects was too wide, so should have pay a personal visit misread. Sitting among dancing butterflies, Charlotte said no name or another information divination, maybe be vague and imprecise. Royal replied that any information will useful, and Charlotte took the gold coin of Ossetia empires for promotion accuracy. The coin spun and fell onto the card, revealing third residential sector where were located single apartments and buildings for living. The proximity to a shopping street made the sector more expensive first, so the rich usually settled there nobles, mainly women of high status. Having received this information, Royal went to the elegant estate to provide data Lillian and discuss the club's next steps. He said that the club could give information about possible shelters cultists and provide small support in their capture. Knowing where Cheryl's token is located, Royal in advance took it, providing himself with an advantage and strategic preparing for the raid. Lillian emphasized seriousness cases and stated that personally will lead their people to carry out raid on possible places shelters cultists. Because there were 2 potential places, it was planned split into 2 squads to simultaneously examine both plot. Royal believed that this is not the best option and wanted to stay close to the sender of the letter, so that catch all cultists entirely. Lillian, waving her hands on the table, screamed that, "This too much, it's dangerous, and he won't be able to deal with the criminals alone." I was surprised by his determination, and my heart sank when heard about the intention, take risks without support, and without looking back. Royal noted that a teacher who colluded with cultists is more likely already knows about the sender and supports contact the Query Club. The matter could not wait delays, therefore Royal asked Lillian trust him, and she finally agreed to the risky plan. Girl Melty Sunny turned out to be the sender of the letter to the Request Club, but felt that no one took action, and her efforts went unnoticed. Recently, she felt like someone was watching her, and the anxiety didn't go away. Not for a minute. She ran home with mad speed, looking around before open-door his apartments. When around there was no one there, I was able enter, but inside her waited an unexpected surprise that made heart get stuck faster. In one from rooms on the chair sat Royal, calmly asked her not to worry and not to panic. Early in the morning, he received information from the club. The sender of the letter turned out to be precisely Melty, and now everything became clear. He stood up and warned that, rather, just for Cheryl are watching cultists, but came here to protect girl any price. Melty was surprised. She more should be in the academy, and didn't expect the club to grow so quickly reacted. Tears stuck in my throat. Royal tried my best calm down her, explaining that hundreds of people from the Query Club and department, the execution of punishments, is applied efforts to destroy cultists. He managed to do it calm down, after what Melty fell asleep, and Royal quietly closed the doors to the room, maintaining silence. He had previously purchased a castle that was disguised under medallion and snapped it shut to hide girl from stranger's eye. Meanwhile, cultists sounded the alarm. Melty's letter to the Query Club violated their plans, and headed Azure, the club turned out to be a rose threat. For them, it's dangerous. After all, the return of the Great One is near, and nothing should interfere implementation plan. One of cultists assured that all it will be settled. 400 years have passed. The birth of the Great One must not be repeated. They cannot make a mistake. Anyone who will attract attention, the decisive moment will be destroyed without delay. Because it was a misfire was too much risky. Director of the Academy. Antonio survived the incident 400 years ago and could create new difficulties. So it can't be, was ignore. Cultists decided that in no way case it is forbidden to attract his attention. And with Melty need to finish, how can quicker? 3 days later, Miss was observed Melty yielded no results. The Query Club seems to have ignored her, and she remained safe. But after today's evenings, it's no longer possible was found alive. Cultist intended to complete the matter radically. Dissolving into the rare condition, he penetrated under door apartments and restored former guise, ready for execution tasks. Having looked around room, he noticed Melty, sleeping on the bed, and immediately moved towards her to execute your own appointment. As a surprise to the cultist was that someone grabbed him by the shoulder at the back. This was Royal, who came during. He applied Glacier on the attacker, and the cultist's hand covered Frost, slowing his movements and creating a chance to attack. Cultist managed during to beat off the hand without letting the ice spread throughout the body, maintaining control over the situation. There was a hand lost, But the cultist did not publish screams, though Royal provoked him by testing patience and strength. Meanwhile, Lillian, I walked along the mountain behind the academy, and her stone Gemini lit up stronger, reacting to magic activity. Stones whole, but after divisions receive special properties. If mana flows into one, the second same starts glow. Looks like it's already started in the wine cellar fun. And Lillian gave the order to begin, beginning series actions and combat spells. Cultist approached Royal, claiming that assault on a teacher is serious violation of academy rules. He explained that he was just patrolling the surroundings and felt abnormal pulsation. Mana, outgoing from rooms, therefore decided check. The teacher needs was win time to restore bleeding and inflict on Royal the decisive blow, keeping tactical advantage. Royal surprised. Really lie, this guy is a teacher academy, and asked show certificate to verify identity. Cultist took out the document and reported that knows the boy's teacher, intending not to leave the matter without supervision and explanations. The boy was surprised. So he is not a cultist. He did not come kill Melty, and it happened some mistake that need to find out. Royal waved his staff, activated the power to help the teacher by preparing for healing and protective spells simultaneously. The teacher noticed powerful Royal's life force, was surprised. Most methods treatments have side effects, and the power of life is a safe path. He admitted mistake and asked at first help, and then, if all will end, let's kill him so as not to create threat. Young Mr. sent vital energy on the teacher, enveloping him with power, restoring health and protection from danger. Royal imposed spell that turned half of the teacher's face into stone, but he, during reacted by avoiding full defeats. Without thinking, he jumped out of the window shouting that catch him will be impossible, demonstrating agility and strategy thinking. Royal knew his prey would not be able to leave. And what would know happened, control over the situation remains his. I met a man halfway there grander and attacked successfully, creating an unexpected turn and a chance for a decisive blow. Cultist, without seeing exit, called the dark deity, took out his sword and pierced yourself, opening the way for the challenge magical entities. From him flew out strange a creature that resembles a worm, but is not one them, frightening and unpredictable. Royal understood that creature made of flesh and blood is not an easy opponent, and you will have to use all your strength to deal with him. A little later, the monster developed eyes and teeth and began to attack. The boy, showing aggressiveness and combativeness power. Grander noticed, this total only projection, dark deity, and compared to the Kraken, the power of the creature was just trash. When the monster approached again, Royal didn't apply effort and slightly hit, after what creature disappeared, leaving behind emptiness of oneself. Then the cultist teacher himself received a blow to the face, feeling consequences their own actions and power of the enemy. Royal said, since he remained alive, he is waiting for execution. But the teacher asked not to kill, promising tell the whole truth. Blood Tribute Cult was only small organization not equal the powers that be, but planned grandiose actions. Something like that happened 400 years ago, was planned again, and cultist tried hand over information. But he didn't have time to finish. His stomach began to ache rapidly. Puff up, face covered with veins, and the process came out of control. Continued puff up until the body did not burst, demonstrating cruelty, a curse that spared no one. Apparently, he was under a curse that kills for trying to speak, and Royal tried unravel what happened 400 years ago. There was a sound nearby, big explosion. Lillian has it too, was happening something extremely important, attracting attention to danger situations. Royal remembered. Members detachment Lillian were horrified by what they saw in the cellar, and he hurried to them to help in battle. When he arrived, he saw Paul and others literally vomiting from magical and physical consequences of the battle with the cultists. Paul said that the group managed to deal with the enemies. Only 28 cultists, which 3 were taken prisoner, the rest destroyed. Danny's spell was disgusting. Cultists, they cut their bellies open and blood vessels broke out outward, as if tentacles. Lillian, coming in inside, did not come out again, ordering everyone keep away from the entrance, controlling situation and security. More total suffered Lillian. She is among the victims. I accidentally recognized someone and was emotionally shocked happened. Royal went to the cellar. Paul tried stop him, but in vain. Duty and responsibility called for action. Having entered inside, he saw Lillian next to a girl tied up, chained to a pole, evidence cruelty and violence. She was killed, and the view was so it's terrible that straight away Can was guess about torture before death. The girl asked Royal not to look at her and to leave, but he ignored the request, realizing necessity actions. He said that it's not her fault. Nothing can be fixed, and it's important to take care of those who still alive, supporting survivors. According to Marcius, in the shadows, academies were hiding more serious threats, and Royal needed support to cope with them. After these words, Lillian turned and asked what he meant, realizing private the guy's interest and responsibility. He explained, they were used in the battle, powerful spells with side effects, and now it is in the best form. So that act again, Lillian. A little blushed. Royal's words warmed up her heart, and she touched his cheek, feeling warmth and care. She felt the resonance of blood relationship, realizing that Royal was her relative, which shook her to the depths of her soul. Royal, same understood. I was shocked, but I understood it. Necessity keep a secret for safety's sake, Lillian. At that moment, his ring began to sparkle, warning of the impending dangers and necessity's immediate actions. He screamed, Lillian, till she stepped back, preparing for the next step and defense yourself and those around you. Royal called to Lillian, trying to figure out why. They're moved so unexpectedly and where, as if time itself got confused around them. She same inherited pedigree creator kings, having turned out to be blood relative Royal, almost how my own sister. And this felt weird, close. This time, it's her dragged into a state witness, and Royal didn't know where she now, having received the wake up notification pedigree. But time was going slower, twice as fast longer, apparently because now there was two united by force pedigree. Looking around, he noticed mass corpses. Since when did cultists become so brazen, killing people right on the road and leaving bodies? Under one of corpses, Royal noticed the letter carefully folded, like abandoned, especially for those who looking for answers. The letter was addressed to the Holy Messenger. Leinster Department Convocation Saints, faced with a big threat, and needed was immediate reaction. Convocation Saints worshiped the Mother Goddess, and from the letter it was clear that the year was 612 of the Third Eras, period Second War's deviants. Place the action became the outskirts capitals academies, where flared-up insurrection cultists, but the instigator, it was not the convocation that spoke out, but the Brotherhood of Salvation. Relationship between evil cults were blind zone. Convocation saints sought to cleanse the world with 6 disasters and bring humanity back into the arms goddesses. Brotherhood of Salvation haunted their purposes that are not clearly related to disasters, and there the methods remained a mystery, but the threat they represented, a serious. According to the letter, the Brotherhood had established control over Leinster using sacred artifact obtained previously, and now directed forces against disobedient. They switched to those cultists who refused obey, and won from main goals. The convocation itself became saints, threatening their authorities. To perform tasks or search Lillian need to was enter the city during wars, overcome protection and action by all possible means. Approaching the city gates, Royal asked the guard to call Bradley, posing as a holy messenger sent convocation saints. The Brotherhood has called in the army monsters in black armor that could move only at night, making noise a whisper that can cloud the mind. Royal sat in the office Bradley where I learned from the agent undercover that Real, the holy messenger, was killed on the way here. Bradley straightaway noticed inconsistency and directly asked Royal, who is he really? In fact, not trusting the guy's words. Royal replied that he was not the one the scum that died halfway. He was holy messenger under direct command manual's convocation. Bradley asked, name the leader who sent him here, because he himself had not yet asked the convocation for help. But someone had already appeared. Royal reported that leaders unanimously voted to send it from Port Bicorn, making it extraordinary holy messenger. He suggested that the letter of convocation it hasn't arrived yet, so Bradley didn't recognize him, and now everything became clear with a misunderstanding. The man was surprised. The port of Deveroga was Saint Land known to the highest management convocation, place peace for the messengers of God and the true believers. If Royal arrived from Port Two-Horned, so he really is a high-ranking member of the convocation, possessing authority and power. The boy demonstrated a small aura of mana, showing Bradley, what if words don't convince? You can check true power in energy. Bradley straightaway recognized the aura and brought deep apologies for the previous one audacity, knowing with whom has the matter is in fact case. Sightmen expanded. He felt the aura of the messenger of God, resting in the depths of the ocean, and respect arose instantly. Royal asked report on current situations, ready evaluate threats, and understand that need to do for protection cities and allies. Bradley reported that the Brotherhood had captured 3/4 Leinster, leaving only the castle in the Eastern District under the control of the Holy Brotherhood. They could not engage in close combat. They advanced with difficulty, losing men continuously, fighting without rest, day and night. Against armies, monsters. During the day, the Brotherhood personally led the attack at night, resting and giving the field to monsters, forces which surpassed possibilities defenders of the castle. Royal went down to the soldiers and began to heal by returning strength and confidence, doing their ready for new resistance. He introduced himself, the Holy Messenger, and explained that received exercise strengthen Leinster and save brothers and sisters from suffering and death. Royal began to talk fanatically about the Mother Goddess, and with the help of forces ice formed a huge sword, ready fight the creatures. Chopped with the same sword, all creatures outside the castle walls, creating a barrier for monsters and strengthening the defense of the saints. At first it irritated him, sharp, moving into the past, but now disgusting creatures caused him only anger and determination. The Brotherhood did not understand how the envoy of the convocation was able to attract attention, goddesses' mothers exactly here, and it left them at a loss. They had already killed one messenger, when this one appeared second. Perhaps at the convocation really was two, Sartoni puzzled. All soldiers thanked Royal and shouted at the top of their voices, "Long live Mr. Royal," showing loyalty and respect. Now, Royal conquered trust armies, effectively demonstrating their abilities, attracting attention Academy, and, of course, Lillian. The only thing is that gave the crown attribute Resistance Maddening Whisper, but it did not increase the strength of the chained black armor of the cultists. Although Royal temporarily broke move battles, the price that had to pay the Union of Saints, there was too much left high for the future cities. He asked Tell about the situation at the Academy Freya. Yes, is there anyone there from Assembly's Twilight Wise Men who would help? Bradley replied that there were two, an academician Astrid and Guardian Antonio, rather total, waiting reinforcements and ready for action. Royal noticed that even if they from Assemblies, this does not mean that they will be able to effectively use their forces when amplifying influence of the Brotherhood. So he asked to find a way contact them to make a deal and sink actions against invaders. Along the streets, Leinster was walking Lillian, covered in blood, walking between bodies cultists in search Royal and Salvation friends. She was, I'm sure. If it weren't for the intervention Royala, then, now they wouldn't have ended up in this terrible place where every step was dangerous. She thought that pulled in younger brother in danger, and now decisively intended to find him as can quicker. Creatures in black in armor, they whispered their spells trying to influence the mind. But Lillian felt that they don't affect her directly. Since Royal has the same blood, Whisper also had no effect on him. But after the battle with the cultists, there was little strength left to resist. It was necessary to find each other before of all. And the easiest, this was due if rumor about Lillian will spread throughout the city. For this was required massacre. The residents already knew about it, and chaos all around created ideal conditions for rumors. Astrid approached Antonio with a question about the strange behavior, noticing in his gaze something suspicious. He explained that appeared Holy Messenger of the Convocation Saints, who caused a crushing blow to the Brotherhood of Salvation blockade. Astrid felt familiar auras. Perhaps was one of those saints' messengers who earlier met in her missions. Astrid herself was an important figure. Assembly's Twilight Wise Men remained elusive for years and controlled hidden flows of power. But the appearance the traitor in the Assembly was put under threat her personality, which is what caused it current crisis among wise men. Royal was, I'm sure, that if it's here moved ring black roses, this is somehow connected with the academician Astrid. Yesterday's triumph Convocation Saints became a step towards victory. If Wood Academy opened the gates, the Brotherhood's salvation by morning no longer existed would. But this did not happen. Probably for that reason, their reasons hidden from outsiders' eye and strategy considerations. The Convocation has recently attracted the Wizard King, Priestly Maxwell, now director of the Academy St. Freya, which came as a surprise to Royal. Royal, I was surprised. How come he didn't have information about such a thing? Outstanding man, situation in Leinster was critical and did not tolerate delays. When Royal he fell asleep, suddenly found himself in front of the monastery, ancient god, as if fate itself had transferred him to another measurement. Inside, he saw a girl with horns on a throne who introduced herself as Artasia and stated that she is the queen of witches. The word witch in the continent of Sia used with caution. Witches was a little bit, and they did not form communities that did their special. Earlier, they occupied tall positions, but people treated them with distrust and caution, valuing strength but fearing magic. At the entrance, Arthasia called Royal Mr. Hero, and that straight away caused him curiosity. Why, that's exactly how he was perceived. She explained that he is the hero who will free her from eternal death, and asked to name your own name to continue the acquaintance. He was about to speak when Petra warned him against this, and Royal restrained himself, heeding the warning. In the end, he called himself simply Roy, abbreviated and careful not to reveal all truth. Arthasia suggested moving on to something more close acquaintance and asked about a date, which made Royal surprised and hesitate. He was silent, surprised, held back any words, but a look Artasi spoke about seriousness offers. She explained that the knight who defeats the dragon's word receives wealth, and the hero who saves princess finds her love is the order of rewards. Reward well-deserved, but the choice of a hero without a test impossible. She emphasized she and Royal realized that you will have to pass the test. He objected that he did not defeat the dragon and did not save it. No one, not understanding what deserved it, attention Artasi. Which answered, the result is important, not the motives. Suffering and obstacles do not matter values if target achieved. She decided that them need to get to know each other better. Clicked with your fingers, and in front of the Royal appeared covered table full treats. Arthasia offered to feed him with a spoon, but Royal refused. It was such an honor intended only for Nora and Alice. They spent the whole day together, playing chess and walking along the riverbank, enjoying the moment of silence. Against the backdrop of a beautiful sunset, she noticed that time meetings came. Although for the first meetings it was long and leisurely. Royal thought, didn't go lie she's on a date just for the opportunity get him out of dangers. After all, witches rarely there are selfless. She confidently replied that the reason was simpler. An invitation was personal, not conditioned circumstances, and Royal believed her. Clicking with her fingers, she declared that he was the only one who worthy to stand next to her. And that word was final. Now Royal was already sitting on the throne above the city, feeling all the weight and responsibility. Provisions that to him entrusted Arthasia. She suggested help him become king to carry out desire. And this included not only power, but also love and personal aspirations. The desire could be executed, but existed conditions. For implementation in the real world of Artasia was required the body in which she could come in. She chose Body, the girl who came with Royal, promising not to harm her. And this offer stunned the hero. Royal with amazement looked at her and said that he could not allow such an act. Defense Lillian was for him priority. She only laughed, predicting that soon he will change his mind. And her confidence called simultaneously anxiety and irritation. Royal Sharp jumped out of bed. Witch Queen definitely didn't fit him, and the thought of her condition caused protest. It is forbidden was allowed to transform Lillian in the witch's vessel, was beyond the pale, and Royal firmly decided refuse. Into the room entered Bradley was informed that the Brotherhood of Salvation had sent a letter asking for negotiations, which was an unexpected turn of events. He added that regardless of the proposals, Advice Saints ready offer Royal much more than we could have expected enemies. Opening the box, Royal saw stone crowns, a symbol of the summoning of the storm, one of the 6 disasters that destroyed ancient people. This artifact was kept power capable of controlling the elements, and reminded of the strength and responsibility that had to be faced. Royal grinned, deciding that meeting with the Brotherhood of Salvation it is possible but with reservations and preparation. Before that's all, he asked for hand over the acorn pendant. Antonio, to the prisoners at the academy, returned to the general, ensuring order. In the evening, Royal came to the mansion captured by the Brotherhood of Salvation, and immediately felt a strange atmosphere, far from business-like meetings. He couldn't even imagine that will start evening reminiscent of personal insult, not negotiation, and that's immediately alerted Royal. From crowds were heard voices. Royal is a country bumpkin who doesn't understand anything about life, and laughter that raises mood present. Young Mister asked where the one who must negotiate, demonstrating hostility to the farce played out before him. Behind him appeared the leader of the Brotherhood. Sartoni greeted Royala on behalf of the whole Brotherhood, showing formality. Royal reminded that should discuss termination wars, but instead of this arranged a banquet, creating impression farce and play. Leader explained that the banquet was created for liberation and honesty communication, so that achieved trust and openness between the parties. He asked royal question about experience communication with women, that it had nothing to do with the military topic, but served as a test character. This question looked like strange, but it did. The goal is to establish personal connections and create a trusting atmosphere among participants. Leaders suggested dance as a symbol of goodwill, following traditions countries' scientists to establish friendly relations, pre-official relations negotiations. He noted that among environment royal has no women and asked if there are any those who wish make up him a couple, demonstrating formality and etiquette. There are only girls in the hall, whispered, not agreeing to the proposal, kept intrigue and distance in front of the young mister. And then there was a painful sound, a familiar voice suggesting that if everyone refuses, let them will allow to act differently, and the atmosphere will change instantly.